Prayer and the Philippine National Anthem.
And of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, our Father, we praise and thank you for this day. You have given us another opportunity to fulfill our mission as your instruments of peace and progress. Bless today's meeting and guide us in our discussions. Enlighten our minds in every decision that we make, and equip us with the responsibility of our elected position. May we effectively do our parts as public servants for your greater glory. All these we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem.
Kayang magiliw, lalas ang silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lumang hinirang, tuyang ka ng pag-ibig, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisinig, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mo pagaw, ay dinakang tulak at hawig sa paglayang minamahal. Ang bisag ng wataran mo'y tanong ay narating, ang bituin na parang yakay at kamay di maghihiling. Walang araw ng walang ibang sila, ay langit sa piling mo. Ang hindi kaya ng pagkay ng langit, namamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please take your seats. We will now proceed with the roll call of members.
Mr. Chair,
The Honorable Presti De
I move
Jesus.
to dispense the calling of the roll.
There's a motion to dispense with the roll call.
Second the motion.
Duly seconded. The chair in objections. Roll call is dispensed with. We now proceed. May I ask the committee secretary to please recognize the names of the members present in today's meeting.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and to our honorable members of this committee. In today's meeting, we have the following members in attendance. We have Representative Zia Adyong, Representative Michael L. Romero. We also have Representative Lex Anthony Colada, Deputy Speaker Christine Singson Mihan, Representative Rufus B. Rodriguez, Representative Jose C. Alvarez, Representative Dan S. Fernandez, Representative Rodante Marcoleta. We also have Representative Ramon Rodrigo Gutierrez, Deputy Minority Leader Presley De Jesus, and Representative Francisco Paulo Ortega V. Your Honors.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to our dear members of and distinguished colleagues. Good afternoon to everyone, and to the members of the committee, our guests, our resource persons. Thank you very much for your cooperation and assistance to this committee. By the way, are we already online? May we have the link? I'm sorry.
Live streaming na tayo.
Are we on live stream?
Yeah. Also welcome the public watching us.
I'd also like to, that's the reason why I asked, because I also wanted to welcome the public here at the, who are physically present, and those that are following us online. Welcome to this committee hearing. Today, we continue the motu proprio inquiry on the performance of franchise grantee National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. For this meeting, we have invited resource persons from DOE, ERC, NEA, SEC, NGCP, Independent Electricity Market Operators of the Philippines, Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation, Philippine Competition Commission, More Electric Power Corporation, NTC, NCL Power Consulting Corporation, Royal Asia Appraisal Corporation, Monte Oro Grid Resources Corporation, Calaca High Power Corporation, Synergy Grid Development Corporation, One Taipan Holdings, and Pacifica 21 Holdings. As provided under our rules of the House of Representatives, the committee has jurisdiction over all matters directly and principally relating to the grant, amendment, extension, and revocation of franchises. This committee, with its mandate, must ensure that the privilege of a franchise is given to those who have complied with our laws and have worked for the good of the Filipino people as always. It is a common good that the committee continues to strive in this process. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdating. May I now direct the Service Director to inform the committee of the resource persons who responded to our invitations.
Mr. Chairman, honorable members of this committee, we have invited resource person, and in attendance today from the Energy Regulatory Commission, we have Chairperson, Commissioner Alexis Lumbatan, Commissioner Catherine Maceda, Commissioner Florecinda Baldo Digal. We also have Commissioner Marco Romeo L. Fuentes, and they are assisted by Attorney Krisha Marie Buela, the Director for Legal Service, Engineer Alvin Jones M. Ortega, Attorney Josine Alexandra Gamboa. From the Department of Energy, we have Undersecretary Sharon Garin. And from the National Electrification Administration, we have here Deputy Administrator Rosan Rosero Lee. From the Securities and Exchange Commission, we have Attorney R.J. Bernal and Attorney Abigail Shakina Tria.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see them. Yeah, can you raise your hand so that we can?
Please,
Yeah,
please
can we
raise your
request
hands.
that we recognize?
Once recognized, please raise your hands. Thank you.
From the Philippine Competition Commission, we have Maria Dominique Lucenario. From the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, NGCP, we have the President Anthony Almeida, Attorney Paul Sagayo Jr., Ms. Nanette Nancy Bugnosen. We also have Attorney Karen S. Ong, Attorney Ronald Dylan Concepcion. From the Monte Oro Grid Resources Corporation and Kalakahaya Power Corporation, we have Attorney Paul Sagayo, Justice Lady Soriano, Attorney Cheryl Saldana de Leon. From the Synergy Grid and Development Philippines Incorporated, we have Attorney Paul Sagayo Jr., Justice Lady Soriano, and Attorney Cheryl S. Saldana de Leon. From the Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines, we have Attorney Richard Netherscott, Engineer Robinson Descanso, and Mr. Sherwin Kasidsid. From the National Transmission Commission, or Transco, we have Ms. Dina O. Dison, the Vice President of Transmission Management Group. We also have Attorney Donna Caloza Aleria, the Department Manager of our Corporate Legal Services Department, and Engineer Joseph Rosalier Atienza, the Department Manager of the Technical Services Department. From the Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation, we have the President, Dennis Edward de la Serna, Attorney Christian Miguel Candelaria, Attorney Frederic Tamayo, Mr. Abner Tolentino, Virginia Reyes, and Roselo Celades. From the NCL Power Consulting Corporation, we have Chris Pauline Tampinco, and we also have the former President and CEO of Transco, Attorney Melvin Matibag. That's all, Your Honors.
Thank you very much, Service Director. In our last meeting, last January 14, the NGCP, along with other resource agencies, were required to prepare the respective comments and documents related to the issues raised as requested by the committee members. A few key points were raised in the last meeting. The DOE confirmed that delays in NGCP's transmissions projects have an effect on the overall cost of generation, which affects the price paid for by consumers. It was also pointed out that NGCP was not compliant from 2011 to 2022 with respect to the non-passing of its franchise tax to consumers. Some members flagged NGCP's possible violation in terms of franchise grant, given that it opted to execute a share swap to comply with the public participation requirement. This led the SEC to state that a share swap is not a public transaction. As such, it is not akin to a public offering. Other members raised concerns as to who controls the NGCP, especially since its minority shareholder, chairperson, is a foreign national. To further shed light on this matter, we ordered the submission of various documents and position papers from the involved parties. So far, we have received submissions from ERC, SEC, and Transco. After their inability to produce certain documents, we also issued a subpoena ducis tecum to NGCP for the submission of the following: shareholders agreement between Synergy Grid, One Taipan Holdings, and Pacifica 21, GIS and other corporate documents, GIS and other documents, Kalakahay Power Corporation, GIS and other documents, SGDPI, GIS and other corporate documents, One Taipan Holdings, Inc., GIS and other corporate documents, Pacifica 21 Holdings, Inc. The first attempt to serve the subpoena was effected on January 16, but it was refused to see it as apparently the NGCP allegedly no longer holds office in Quezon City, as stated in its SEC documents. As such, the subpoena was served on January 17 at its San Juan office. May remind everyone that NGCP was ordered to produce documents by Tuesday. However, it has not yet submitted the documents until today. We would like to reiterate that the lone purpose of this inquiry, which is to bring down the price of electricity. This is why we implore everyone with the power and influence to do so and cooperate in relieving the Filipino people of this burden. Tulungan po natin ang isa't isa, tulungan po natin ang mamayang Pilipino. Magandang hapon at maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Okay, so we understand that there were documents that were submitted just now. So we will review, and I would like to thank NGCP for submitting the documents. As I say, better late than never. So thank you very much for submitting the documents today, and we will review these documents for the future hearings of the committee. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, before I recognize the Honorable Fernandez, I would like to remind everyone that there were supposed to be two presentations last hearing, which were not presented because of the time element. So before we continue with the questions, so that we can discuss it intelligently, may I ask first that the presentations, para po matapos na po yung mga presentation, di na ho kayo, dahil nakakahiya ho, dapat ho last week pa ho nyo dapat pinisent po yan. I will ask you now to present while we're going to prepare some of our questions based on your presentation. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, this is administrative issue, because a while ago you were discussing about the invitations, and I wasn't able to ask some clarification on the invitation that we sent to the resource persons. Like, we have invited the chairman of the NGCP, si Shu Guang Chao. Nandito po ba siya ngayon?
Yes. They have letters. That's why after the presentation, we will call NGCP so that NGCP will explain the letters of all the persons that we were invited but were not able to show up in today's hearing. So now we will ask first,
So,
the Honorable
excuse me.
Eunice Junicio is recognized. You're here. Thank you very much for coming. Oh, thank you for coming.
So we're going to present some presentation
Yes,
first,
the
and then we
presentation
will go back to the administrative
Yes,
matters. Thank you,
yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we now proceed. May I ask Transco to please make your presentation first. Then after that, the next presenter would be
EMAP.
EMAP. Okay. Is that the right presentation? IMAP, right? IMAP. Okay, so we start first with Transco.
Good
Please
afternoon,
present.
Mr. Chair.
Silence requested.
Good afternoon. I'm Dina Dizon, Vice President of Transco. Mr. Chair, our President is currently in a board meeting right now, Transco board meeting, but he will catch up later once that finishes. So we present the aspect of the projects when it comes to transmission rate setting. May we request the Secretariat to pull up our materials, please? It's the other. This is IMAP. Nakalagay kasi 4 inches. So again, good afternoon. Our presentation intends to provide insights and show the implications of the projects in transmission rate setting. Next slide, please. The transmission projects, sorry about that. The EPIRA has allowed ERC to enforce a methodology for rate setting that not only takes into account efficiencies, but also penalizes the regulated entities for inefficiencies. As a regulator, the ERC must aim to balance fair returns to the investors and at the same time ensure reasonable price of electricity for the consumers. Next slide, please. The transmission projects that are much discussed go into what is referred to as the regulatory asset base that the regulator considers in setting transmission rates. The RAB, as we call it, in fact, is the primary driver of the two components of NGCP's maximum annual revenue, or the MAR. And the two are the profit component, this is in red, and the depreciation in green. In fact, for the third regulatory period final determination for NGCP, these components represented 82% of NGCP's MAR, with return on capital or the profit component as 66% and the depreciation as 16%. This being said, the proper consideration of the RAB value is essential to the whole rate determination process. Next slide, please. The objective of performance-based regulation is to ensure that only completed projects and efficient costs of ongoing projects are included in the opening RAB. The opening RAB is the reckoning point for the regulatory period, and the reason for including this only is to maintain fair and reasonable transmission rate. Allowing ongoing projects is not bad per se, since it encourages investment by the transmission network service provider. What is important, though, in the whole process to promote fairness is the reconciliation portion. Only completed projects are added to, and a reasonable provision for ongoing projects are included in the opening RAB. While forecast capex expenditures are allowed to earn the weighted average cost of capital, the reconciliation process ensures that there are efficiency adjustments as well. Next slide, please. Here is some more detailed representation of the previous slide. The point we want to highlight here is that the projected depreciation component is based on only on existing and newly completed projects. This is a fair framework. However, under the recent as-spent approach adopted by the majority decision of the regulator for the lapse period 2016 to 2022, the depreciation for ongoing projects, which for the most part encountered project delays, had been added to the depreciation building block for the annual revenue requirements or MAR of NGCP. Just to illustrate the point, next slide please. We want to tie in the discussion of the performance of NGCP during the fourth reg period, considering the draft determination allows the as-spent approach for the lapsed period. The figures here have been lifted from the ERC draft final determination. And NGCP completed only 75 projects out of 258, or 29% of the target, 258 projects. And in money value, this is roughly 10%. Next, NGCP completed much of the other projects within 2023 to 2024, or beyond the fourth regulatory period. There are projects with maximum delay exceeding 9 years. Similarly, 51 of 68 ongoing projects, or 75%, are also delayed, with the maximum delay, again, for some exceeding 9 years. With the noted delays, the ERC even filed NGCP for unjustified for these, and a total penalty of 15.8 million was imposed. Next, please. The adoption of the as-spent approach results in a higher transmission rate by 80 centavos per kilowatt hour, give or take a few. These pieces of information have been lifted from the actual draft final determination released by the ERC. So our last slide is on the potential impact of delayed transmission projects. While there is cost implication directly for the transmission charge, that is, our analysis is that for every 5 billion worth of capex, the additional amount of transmission rate is about 1/2 of 1 centavo per kilowatt hour. But there are also indirect impact, like the cost to the economy, then the allowing other alternative sources to come in, so the renewable energy integration benefits are not optimized. And then finally, the higher electricity cost here may be a result of using more expensive alternative power sources because the lines are not available to deliver the cheaper sources. So that's our presentation, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Marco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I find it a little bit difficult to understand why Transco is the one passing judgment on the performance of NGCP. I'd like to believe, Mr. Chair, it should be ERC who should be advising us on the aspects and the pertinent indicators for us to understand whether or not NGCP performed well in accordance with the role. Kasi, Mr. Chair, I think it is better for us to determine which performed better in relation to the grid performance. Nung panahon ba ng Transco o nung panahon na ng NGCP? This is more understandable for us. Lawmakers, kaya naming intindihin ito, ma'am, but I don't think you are in a position to pass judgment on the performance of NGCP. Kayo po ang may-ari niyan eh. Kayo ang may-ari. Pero sila po yung operator ngayon. But, I think, and Madam ERC, kayo po ang kayo po ang merong role dito eh. But before that, Mr. Chair, I think you made the opening salvo and said that the very purpose of this hearing is for us to determine or to lower the rates of electricity in this country. If that is the primordial objective, I believe, Mr. Chair, the cost share of NGCP in the entire electric bill of our people is only 3%. 52% still in generation. 25% is in distribution. So if we are serious enough in focusing our attention and reducing the electricity in this country, let us focus on which area takes up the largest share. Dapat sa generation tayo eh. Pero ang daming problema po, Mr. Chair eh. I already pointed out this to the BOE. Noon po, ERC muna. If we wanted to reduce the electricity in this country, let me ask the ERC, bakit hanggang ngayon po wala kayong regulations on aggregation? Bakit yun ating pong ARCOA hindi nyo pinatutupad? This is where we can reduce our electricity. Retail competition and open access is a provision in EPIRA that we have not seriously considered. Ilan po yung nag-migrate from the captive market of Meralco? Ilan po kaya? Napakalaki po ng relation nito, Mr. Chair. If we are really serious to lower the electricity in this country, kailangan po nating i-implement po yung EPIRA. Nandun po yung sinasabing retail competition and open access. So, alam po ba ninyo kung ilan ang nakaka-graduate or migrate from the captive market of Meralco para contestable market na sila? Wala naman kayong report eh. What about aggregation? There are no rules on aggregation here. Pagkatapos ni-raise po namin ang issue way noon pa, you suddenly adopted a modality you call performance-based rate. Mr. Chair, before we had EFIRA, ang ating pong modality is RORB. This is return on base rate, which is more practical because everything else is based on CAPEX. Kung ano po yung gastos ninyo, doon tayo kikita. Pero doon sa performance-based na po kung ano lang pinlano nila, hindi pa po natin napatunayan kung talagang yung plano natupad. Doon na po natin ibe-base ang singil. Kaya ang taas-taas po And we need to look into the system loss. Magkano po yung system loss? Meralco, maybe 10%. Electric cooperatives, maybe 20%. Ang taas po. Bakit hindi po ito yung unahin natin? Why are we focusing our attention on the transmission, which is only 3%?
Thank you very much, Honorable Marcoleta.
Ito po yung gusto
Ano
ko
po,
pong
napaganda ho ng inyong
Mr. Chairman.
posisyon at inyong mga tanong.
Mr. Chairman.
Honorable
Mr. Chair. In the support.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair.
Kaklaruhin lang po natin to ha. Meron pa ho isa pang presentation.
Yes,
Patapusin po natin muna yung isang presentation, then lahat ng mga nakalista,
Point of
tatawagin ko
clarification,
kayo
Mr.
para
Chairman.
maayos po yung ating presentation.
Mr. Chairman, point of
Thank you.
clarification and point of information. And hindi po naman natin dinedepensa ang Transco. But tama po si Congressman Marcoleta that we have to follow kung ano sinasabi ng ating pong EPIRA. And specifically, EPIRA law, binabanggit po yan sa Section 34F. Para po i-determine yung pong rate base, no? Transco and distribution utility, ang sinasabi, shall not be allowed to include management inefficiencies like cost of project delays. And that's the reason why Transco, binabanggit po nila yung mga delays ng mga project.
Okay.
And it is the right of the Transco na sabihin po sa atin, ano itong mga proyekto na nadidelay po. And that's the reason why sinusuportahan po ng EPIRA law under Section 34F that the management inefficiencies and cause of the project delays must be considered and must be updated by the Transco.
Thank you very
Kailangan
much,
po, Mr.
Honorable Dan
Chairman.
Fernandez.
Mr. Chair.
We will now proceed.
Mr. Chair, before we move,
With,
because you gave point of
Lord-
clarification kay Kong
Yeah.
Dad, so it's my time siguro.
No, no,
just
wala
one
po-
point clarification lang, Mr. Chair.
Before,
I think I discussed already last
The
time.
Honorable President De Jesus,
Mr. Chair.
patapusin po natin muna
Hindi, kasi-
yung IMAP.
Mr.
So
Chair,
that
very
I will now
important.
entertain all the questions.
Mr.
Because
very-
kung lahat magpo-point of clarification, hindi ako matatapos
Mr. Chair,
dito.
last isa lang, Mr. Chair, kasi misleading sinasabi lang delay. Pakisabi nga ako, ano ba reason ng delay? Is it all problem by the NGCP
Wait.
or ERC rin? or
Maybe that's
mid-court
already
case?
a question. Yes, that is already a question for interpretation, and I suggest that you are already on the list, Honorable President De Jesus. So now I will now recognize IMAP. IMAP, may you please prepare for your. We may now deliver your presentation. We're taking notes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you please, your attorney?
I'm Attorney Richard Nethercott, Mr. Chairman, the President of the Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines, or IMO.
Okay. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the honorable members of this committee. So last December 23, we were directed by this committee to prepare a study or a report on the cost impact of delayed projects. Considering the data that are in our possession, what we prepared, Mr. Chairman, is to present to the committee a comparative study of the market price impact of completed transmission line projects. So we focus on 4 completed projects of the NGCP from of the last 2 years, particularly, well, actually 3 years. No? We focused on the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project, or MVIP, the Mariveles Hermosa and the Hermosa San Jose transmission lines, Cebu Negros Panay Backbone, or CNP3, and the Cebu Bohol Interconnection Project, Mr. Chairman. So may we request thank you, Mr. Chairman. So next slide, please. So these are the considerations or the assumptions that we've used in this project. So the target completion dates were based on the TDP 2020-2040 submitted by NGCP, approved by the DOE. We used the actual energization date reports coming from NGCP, and we also used the average price, the actual average price based on the WSM market results. Next slide, please. Mr. Chairman, just would like to emphasize that this price that we're going to discuss are prices of electricity in the market only. Now, at the average right now, only 20% of the consumption, electricity consumed in the system comes from the market. So this is only representative of that portion. And this is only generation cost. Okay? We have identified market price drivers. So, of course, basically, at the end of the day, price is determined by the interaction between supply and demand. No, moderated maybe by transmission lines. No? So these are the price drivers. For supply, there has to be available supplies, and of course, outages has to be taken into consideration, the offer price. For demand, the economic activities and the seasonality. No? The season actually affects demand levels. Transmission lines also affect prices in terms of congestion and also outages. No? From time to time, transmission lines go into outages. So next slide, please. The first project that we have considered, Mr. Chairman, is the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project. So as I said, the reference is the Transmission Development Plan. It was supposed to be completed on December 2020, but the actual energization happened on May 2023. So disconnected Mindanao and Visayas. We have considered the prices, the average prices from January 2021 to April 2023. That is the period without the energization, no? Before energization. Ito po kasi dapat na-energize 2020 per the report. So for that period, the average prices in Luzon were 6.49 for Visayas, this is 7.39, and for Mindanao, for the billing period February 2023 to April 2023. February lang po sa Mindanao because the Mindanao WSM only started in January 2023. The price before MVIP was 6.17. Now, when the MVIP was energized on May 2023, the prices from May 2023 to December 2024 with MVIP are now 5.67 in Luzon, 6.85 in the Visayas, and 4.87 in Mindanao. So yun po yung average prices. Now, we got the difference, no, without and with. And then, meron pong table dyan which says monthly average quantity or spot quantity. Ito po yung binibili sa WSM. For Luzon, that is 618,512 megawatt hours. For Visayas, 155,643 megawatt hours. For Mindanao, it's 140,788 megawatt hours. So we multiply the price difference with this monthly average spot quantity, we get a potential price reduction. So yung price reduction po is 1.99 for Luzon, 1.77 for Visayas, 1.19 for Mindanao. But yung cumulative price reduction potentially could have been 1.2 billion in Luzon, 274 million in the Visayas, 167 million in Mindanao. Now, if we multiply that with the number of months from December 2020 to May 2023, which around 28 months, the potential cumulative price reduction for that period is 34.5 billion pesos in Luzon, 7.6 billion pesos in the Visayas, and 4.7 billion in Mindanao. Next slide, please. The next project we considered is the Mariveles, Hermosa, and Hermosa San Jose transmission lines. Now, there's a map there, Mr. Chairman, showing where these lines are going to. No? Yung isang line po was connected all the way to Tayabas. The other one went to San Jose. This line actually was instrumental in allowing the new power plants constructed in Bataan to be dispatched and transmitted. So, ang target completion date nito based on the TDP 2020-2040 is May or December 2020. The actual energization happened on April 2022. So comparing the prices, the average prices from January 21 to May 2023 without the transmission lines, and from June 2023 to December 2024 with this completed Mariveles San Jose corridor, the price difference is 1 peso and 10 centavos for Luzon. This is also only in the island of Luzon. Now, if we use the spot settlement price, that will be a difference of 1 peso and 47 centavos. And if we multiply that with the monthly average spot quantity for the period from the target completion to actual energization, the potential average monthly price reduction, cumulative, no, is 923 million pesos, Mr. Chairman, or equivalent to 26.7 billion pesos for 29 months. Next slide, please. The third project we considered is the Cebu-Negros Panay or CNP interconnection project number 3. Per the TDP of 2020, no? TDP 2020-2040, the target date is December 2021. The actual energization happened on April 2024. And the computed price difference is 1 peso 19 centavos for Cebu, 1 peso 16 centavos for Negros, and 0.09, no, or 9 centavos in Panay. That was during the period when there was an N-1 contingency imposed in the Panay sub-region. However, after NGCP implemented their SIPs, no, the prices in Panay went down. So if we compare the effective spot settlement prices, the prices in Cebu, the difference is 2 pesos 65 centavos. For Negros is 2 pesos 86 centavos. And for Panay, it is 2 pesos and 42 centavos. Multiply that with the monthly average spot quantity, the potential monthly price reduction, cumulative, average in Cebu is 136.2 million, 142.42 million in Negros, and 88.8 million in Panay. For 27 months, that translates to 3.6 billion in Cebu, 3.8 billion in Negros, and 2.4 billion in Panay. Next slide, please. The next project, or the last project we considered, Mr. Chairman, for this report is the Cebu-Bohol Interconnection Project. The Cebu-Bohol, this project was targeted for completion last December 2021 based on the TDP of 2020-2040, and the actual energization happened on September 2024. The price difference, the computed price difference based on the spot settlement price is 1.24, Mr. Chairman, and multiplying that with the monthly average spot quantity of 8,964 megawatt hours, we get a potential cumulative monthly price reduction of 11 million for Bohol. For 32 months, that translates to around 354 million. Now, the observations that we have gathered from this study is that transmission lines is only one of the factors affecting price. But the most important contribution of complete and transmission projects, basically, Mr. Chairman, is the improvement of supply reliability and the potential to transmit cheaper power from available resources. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your brief presentation. Since the subject matter is NGCP, today present is the President, Mr. Anthony Almeida, who we've invited several times, and in the last hearing, there was a request that a subpoena be issued, but we opted to still invite him. And I would like to thank him for coming in today's hearing. Since kayo naman po ang subject matter, may we hear from you first before questions are asked.
Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon all to the congressmen who are all here. I'd like to read Mr. C's opening statement. Mr. C intended to attend today's proceeding after his pre-scheduled morning appointment with the embassy. However, he was unfortunately held up and cannot make it to Congress on time. He sends his sincere apologies, and he asked me to deliver this statement on his behalf. Mr. Chairman.
Please.
NGCP is a Filipino corporation, and we run the company as Filipinos. We bought the transmission business from the government in 2007 in an open public bidding at the cost of almost $4 billion. We did this in good faith and in accordance with the PIRA law passed by Congress. This was not a negotiated bid, but was a solicited contract subjected to public bidding. We followed the law, we followed the contract you gave us to sign, we followed the regulator. As the operator of the transmission system of the country, we are a partner of the government in the energy sector. We have undertaken to pay PISAM $3.95 billion as concession fee. We have also invested so much into improving the system, almost 400 billion pesos as of the end of 2024. We have increased the capacity of the transmission system to transmit power 865 times compared to Transco. We have taken up the government's directive to loop the entire country with the completion of the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection project. We have also finished the Cebu-Negros-Panay interconnection, the Cebu-Bohol interconnection, and the Hermosa-San Jose backbone. We are not in breach of our franchise, our concession agreement, and the Philippine Grid Code. The price the consumer pays for the transmission services have gone down significantly since Transco ran it in 2008. Our portion of the bill is only 3%, but we find the other 97% has not been subjected to the same scrutiny. On our projects and alleged delays, if there's any delay, there can be directly attributed to the delays in right-of-way procurement, the long permitting process, and most significantly, ERC's delay. We have more than 100 projects pending approval with the ERC, and these projects have waited for approval for almost 4 years on the average. The last regulatory reset conducted was for the period of 2011 and to 2015. Since then, we have not been given a revenue scheme that reflects the development needs of the transmission system. Despite no clear revenue stream and uncertain recovery, we continue to invest into the grid. We continue to build, and we continue to serve our country. Even now, we are locked in discussions with the ERC, who chooses to penalize us for every little delay, and refuse to acknowledge their part in the regulatory mess the energy industry finds itself in. We follow the rules you set, the contracts you drafted, and the franchise you passed into law. We have done our job. We have bent over backwards to pursue our mandate and hold our end of the concession agreement. Our SCADA system is a secure, standalone, isolated system that is not connected to any other network. It is not connected to the internet, and it cannot be remotely hacked. It is NGCP alone, through its Filipino directors and personnel, and not the Chinese, which has the control over the system operations. The Chinese do not have control over the grid. There is no proverbial single red button that can instantly turn off the grid. There are protocols that actually prevent this. NGCP's procurement of goods and services included the updated SCADA system from NARI is through a competitive selection process as required by the ERC. The State Grid Corporation of China does not exercise control over the power grid nor over NGCP. Domestic corporations Monte Oro Grid Resources Corporation and Kalakahay Power Corporation each hold 30%, or a total of 60% of the outstanding capital stock of NGCP, whereas SGCC only holds a minority share of 40%. SGCC's shareholding in NGCP is consistent with the Constitution. Moreover, during the bidding of the concession agreement, the government required the participation of financially and technically capable participants. Since the operation of the transmission business has always been monopolized by the state, only foreign participants possess the relevant with domestic and international experience and expertise to operate transmission system comparable to the Philippine transmission grid. As to why we choose to partner with SGCC, I direct this question to the former owner. He bought into the Chinese. When I bought the shares in 2010, the Chinese were already there. Similarly, the shareholders' agreement that has been the topic of so much speculation was already there when we stepped into the former owner's shoes. But I do not wish to throw stones. I also want solutions. Speaking as a businessman, we need stability, not just in the energy supply, but also in law, policy, and regulation. I strongly urge the DOE to look into the problem as a whole. The data is clear. 97% of the power interruptions from 2016 to 2013 was caused by problems in supply. We need stable, affordable baseload power. We need comprehensive aligned plan and considers the need to all sectors. We are willing to be part of the solution, but transmission should not be the solution for everyone's problems. For DOE, ERC, and Transco, NGCP, and IMOP, we should work together hand in hand to have a better energy plan. God bless us all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mr. Anthony Almeida. That was the statement of Mr. C.
Yes,
Junior.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you very much. I will be asking you the first question, but before that, I'd like to acknowledge some members who have arrived. The Deputy Majority Leader, the Honorable Franz Pumaren of the 3rd District of Quezon City, the Honorable Bong Teves Jr. of DGP Party List, and of course, the hardworking Stella Luz Kimbo of the 2nd District of Marikina City. Welcome to the committee hearing. The chairperson of ERC is here also. May please raise your hand. The chairperson, the Honorable Dimolanta. Yes, ma'am. Welcome to this hearing. Na-late kayo. Yung isang hearing, hindi kayo na-late. Ngayon, na-late kayo. Mukhang may meeting pa. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Almeida, for appearing before this committee. And thank you for your manifestation and the manifestation of Mr. C, that indeed you're here to solve problems. You're here to help solve these problems. And of course, a lot of questions will be asked later because of the presentation made. But I just would like to ask one question. Regardless of the percentage, because you claim it's 3%, in last week's hearing, some members have said it was 10%, effective because of the delay of transmission. Kasi alam po ninyo, ang GENCO, marami. Ang DU, marami. Pero ang grid, ang highway, iisa. Kayo lang po yan. Kaya ang focus sa inyo eh. Kasi kayo ho yung nag-iisa ron eh. Okay? At ang sinasabi nila, and I will have to, and I'm sure the Honorable President De Jesus will admit in the previous hearings of all the DUs na nagre-request ho ng mga franchise renewal, ang lagi ho nilang tinuturo, NGCP. Kaya daw, because of the delay, it's not only 2%. Mas mataas ang effective rate na maapektuhan ang presyo ng kuryente. Now, pwede po ba ako magtanong? Isang tanong lang, Mr. Almeida. Andito man po kayo para magbigay ng solusyon. Paano ho natin mabababa ang kuryente sa ating bansa?
Maybe all the energy family has to work together to put the prices down. Kasi if we're 3%, we have to talk also to the 97%, Mr. Chairman. So 100% of the whole energy family should discuss and talk. Kami naman on the 3% as the highway will be here. Mr. Chairman, the most important thing here is maybe we can do energy planning as a whole. From transmission, generation, and distribution on where to put our plants para we as transmission know where to go. Hindi ho kami yung naghahabol po sa, kunwari, sa pataas, pababa, pa-left, pa-right. So that it would be also more viable and consistent also on the timeline. Because we have issues also, of course, on the right-of-ways when we pass through. And in any other businesses then po, Mr. Chairman, those are the issues. And issues on permits and everything. Although DOE has been helping us out also on our to-do list on permits. But as a whole, as an energy family, to put the price down, all the sectors has to talk together and put the 97% and the 3% has to work together and work on the price scheme on putting the price down. So, Mr. Chairman, it's a holistic plan. It's just not only as transmission.
But you will have to admit that you're part of that plan. I mean,
yes, of course,
if you don't cooperate and
yes,
the
Mr.
delays,
Yes.
as presented earlier,
Yes.
you're only 30% compliant.
Yes.
You have a 70% backlog,
Yes.
as they presented earlier. From 250, you've only done
75.
Yeah, 75. So you're like you have a backlog of around 70%.
Yeah. Can I? Yeah.
And
yes.
do you agree that this will cost an increase?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, we'd like to validate that number also, and we'd like to look the figures that was presented by Transco. Because as far as I'm concerned, there are a number of backlogs also on the approvals that we need. Remember, we're a regulated company, so we need also approvals on all those regulations also. Although, if it is a shortcomings of NGCP, I would admit it right now as the CEO here. But of course, I'd like to look at the numbers also and validate the numbers also. Mr. Chairman, yeah, if
So
that's
you
okay.
confirm that indeed the delays could also bring the prices up?
I haven't worked on that. Yeah, Mr. Chair?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, may I be
Yes.
recognized?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Mr.
Sagayo.
Paul Sagayo Jr.
Yes,
here
please.
from
Please,
NGCP. Thank
Sir
you.
Paul, yes.
Thank you. In the interest of fair play and due process, if I may, Mr. Chairman, this is the first time that we had been seeing all the presentation materials of Transco and IMAP. May we just be given 7 days from today to consult with our consultants, and we will submit the necessary comments. And also, Mr. Chairman, I would just want to, as our President mentioned, we are part of the energy family. And as Congressman Marcoleta mentioned, we are just 3% in the total energy bill. We want to assure this body that when we took over the transmission system, transmission charges had gone down. And before I end, I would like to inform this honorable body that Transco, PISAM, and NGCP entered into a concession agreement. Under 2.01 of the concession agreement, it is clearly provided that Transco has no regulatory powers over NGCP. Just a gentle reminder. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Sagayo.
Mr.
The Honorable
Chairman,
Dan
Mr.
Fernandez,
Chairman,
you have now the floor. You're the next
Sakto.
interpolator.
I just wanted
The
to have
Honorable Dan
a...
Fernandez is recognized.
Sir, before we proceed with interpellation,
Yeah.
maybe perhaps here I'd like to hear from the former president of Transco. Kasi po I understand the current Transco administration gave their point of view, but I'd also like to hear from more historical
The
institutional
Honorable Dan
members.
Fernandez,
With the indulgence of the
it's his turn, so he will have to ask that question.
Kay former Transco...
Are you yielding to the question?
Ask kay... sure.
Mr. Chair,
So, the
question.
Honorable Matibag, Attorney Matibag, please respond. This is now the time of the Honorable Dan Fernandez. I'd like to remind everyone it's 5 minutes questions. Time of the question would be 5 minutes. You can go for a second round if needed, except the answer, ha? Hindi kasama answer din, ha? So 5 minutes po tayo. The Honorable Matibag.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
The
What
Honorable
are the rules of this committee in terms of there's a representative asking a question and using the time of another representative?
No. This is now, that's why I have to, I sought the permission of the Honorable Dan Fernandez. So it's now Dan Fernandez's time. So
And,
he agreed. That's also a question.
Representative
Yes.
Fernandez yielding.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Matibag.
Thank you,
Attorney
Mr.
Matibag, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, salamat po sa inyong imbitasyon at paumanhin na pangatlong beses ako na-imbitahan. This is the first time that I attended this hearing. And I'm glad to be here. I'm here just a former president and now just a consumer at isa pong Pilipino. I was just listening to the report and to the statement of President Almeida and the good lawyer of NGCP. I've heard that report long time ago. That's the same things that they've been saying na magtulungan tayo, magayos tayo. But let me share my experience when I was the president for 5 years. Wala po kaming pagkakataon na nakapasok at na tingnan man lamang ang mga pasilidad ng NGCP na pag-aari ng Transco. Ngayon lamang po ako nakakita na kami yung may-ari ng bahay at gusto mong tingnan kung anong ginagawa sa bahay mo, hindi kayo pwedeng pumasok. I just like to remind everyone, pinag-uusapan natin dito, presyo, 3% ba, 10% ba, ganito yung binayaran. But more than that, this is something that should be a concern of everyone and that is the national security and the national interest of our country. Alam niyo, nag-uusap-usap tayo, West Philippine Sea, may nakita tayong mga barko ng China na malalaki. Ito po, hindi na ito kailangan pumasok pa sapagkat nandito sila sa sistema mismo natin ng ating power grid. Nanonood po ako ng hearing ninyo, pinanood ko yung replay. Sinaga ko talagang panoorin. And I was struck by the question of the good Congressman Ace Barbers, which was followed by Congresswoman Luistro about the system, the SCADA system, which was replaced by NGCP when they assume. Yung pong existing na mga ano dyan, na mga equipment is General Electric noon, tsaka ABB. Ngayon, pinalitan nila ng NARI. Hindi po kailangang itanong kung may pumasok na armado, terorista. Simple lang po ang tanong ko kay Engineer Clark. Ano ba yung NARI? Proprietary ba yan? Alam nyo ba yung source code? I will make an example para maintindihan po ng publiko. Cellphone. Lahat tayo may cellphone, hindi po ba? Hardware. This is Apple, iPhone. Anong software? iOS, di ba? Pag nakalimutan mo po, Mr. Chairman, yung password ng iyong cellphone, hindi ba pwede kang mag-message, forgot password, ipapaalala sa'yo? Ibig bang sabihin, yung SCADA ba na ginather, yung mga data ng ating power grid, hindi ba nakikita ng China? 3 control, walang single red button. There was already an incident na nagkaproblema ang power grid natin. It was resolved remotely. Twice already na nangyari. So ano ibig sabihin nito? Remotely pwedeng gawin. Hindi po totoo. Magaling si Engineer Clark, alam ko, na-research ko yung background niya yung sa mga yung mga performance doon. Pero ang tanong, do you know the source code? Proprietary yan eh. When we made the research, when we made the presentation doon sa Senado, lumabas that NARI is a state-owned company na used by a military. So nag-report kami niyan, December 2019. We were able to capture yung website nila. Yun yung pinipresent ni Congresswoman Luistro. Sabi ko, ito yung dokumentong binigay namin noon sa Senado. Nakita namin. Kiniklaim talaga nila na first overseas nila na paggamit ng equipment at ng SCADA ang Pilipinas. Nung ni-raise namin yung issue sa Senado, February, tingnan nyo ngayon sa website ng NARI kung nandun pa, wala na. But I have the screenshot already. So more than that. Now, yung question naman noon ni Congresswoman nung nanonood ako, Kimbo, the Honorable Congresswoman Kimbo, sinasabi natin 3%. Huwag natin pag-initan to. I yield to those position of the honorable members. But hindi po 3% lang pinag-uusapan natin dito. The presentation of IMAP was very clear. Nakita nyo yung diferensya because of the delay. But even before that, there was the study done by Butuan, the power plan of Butuan. I'm sure the good chairwoman knows about this. Nang diferensya because of the delay of the project of Visayas-Mindanao connection, there is a price difference of 2 pesos compared to Luzon and Visayas. Ano pong basis nito? IPIRA law. Because under the IPIRA law, the WESM, bibilin nila yung excess ng generation. Huwag po nating sisihin yung generation. Yung excess po ng generation, binibili ng WESM during peak, doon binibenta eh. Yung off-peak, binibili nila eh. Yun po yung totoo niyan. Bakit wala sa Mindanao? Dahil ang requirement is there should be an interconnection before magkaroon ng WESM sa Mindanao. Kaya yung presentation ng IMAP na bumaba because there is already interconnected. Bakit? Because under the IPIRA law, ang sabi ng IPIRA law, bibilhin nga. Ano ang nangyari sa Mindanao? Fully contracted. Yung mga excess kailangan bilhin ng electric cooperatives. So, sino nagbabayad? Tayo po, ng mga consumers. So, may I make an appeal, Mr. Chair? Huwag na sabihin, 3% lang yan. Segment lang ang NGCP. I must remind everyone, the only natural monopoly in the entire energy sector, in the entire business sa Pilipinas, is transmission. Napakarami po yan. Alam niyo po, naririnig ko sa news yung tinitira po kayo sa Kongreso, 777. Alam niyo, mas maganda pong sagot na 77 na pag-uusapan. Yung 7 na violation sa concession agreement ng NGCP, yung 7 po na violation ng national security ng NGCP, at yung 7 po na abuse nila as to the financial status ng government natin. Paano natamaan? Bakit nalugi tayo? Ang ganda po ng opening statement ni Mr. Almeida. Binili namin to ng per square. Pero pag binilikan po natin, it violates the IPIRA law. Because under the IPIRA law, dapat maximum value makuha mo eh. That is in the implementing rules ng IPIRA law natin eh. Hindi natin nakuha yung maximum value. Katunayan, we are losing. During the time of Transco, sinisisi natin Transco, delay, ganito, ganyan, kaya natin binigay. Doon pa rin yung delay eh.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification. My clarification is, Transco rin na nagpabid nito eh. Kayo rin, di ba?
Hindi po.
No, yes or no?
Pisam po.
Pisam, because according to the IPIRA law, a cornerstone of IPIRA law was the privatization of the Transco, transferring management of the national grid to private operators who could bring efficiency, innovation, and capital investment. So, joint kayo ng Transco and Pisam who bidded this in 2007 as ito po, clear.
Tama po, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, Attorney Matibag was not part of Transco at that time.
But,
Because if I was there at that time, I will not allow it.
Yes, but let us be clear, Attorney Matibag. So, before you answer
May I
the
reclaim
question...
my time, Mr. Chairman?
Are you done with your...
Well,
Are you done?
alam nyo, hindi ho tayo matatapos kung gusto nyo.
Oo.
Meron pa po sana kung gustong idagdag.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
I said
Chairman.
there is 777.
Mr.
na
Chair.
violation nila.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you
Chair.
very much, Honorable Attorney
So
Matibag.
I just wrap up, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
I will give you 2 minutes to wrap up.
Ito kasi yung
Hindi lang
problema,
po.
tinawag niyo po ako rito, nananahimik na ako eh.
Okay.
Kaya nabuksan yung ganito eh. Ako po hindi nagre-represent ng taong
Okay.
bayan na po yung pinag-uusapan dito. In fact, I was a victim of mga white paper and everything during that time. Pero ngayon, wala namang maakusa sa akin ako ipagkakakitaan ko to kung ano man. So, I can speak freely. I'm speaking as a public now. I'm speaking for the Filipino people. When we are singing the national anthem, na hindi tayo papayag, di ba? Huwag tayo magpapapi. Hindi na tayo kailangan sakupin. They are there in their system. Because, ibinenta natin. Let me cite this. Tama po yung sinasabi nyo. I was very happy last week to find out, to read the news from Reuters. Alam nyo po ba ang ginawa ng United Kingdom? Na dati ang nagpapatakbo rin ay China yung...
Mr. Chair, I think
private
malayo na
company.
yung ano niya, Mr. Chair eh.
Hindi po malayo
So,
yun.
because the question is direct kanina eh.
Dali lang. There's I asked him to wrap up. Please wrap up so we can go back to the Honorable Dan Fernandez.
Privately owned ang transmission ng UK noon. I was redeemed because noong 2017 we're already pushing na dapat government at least the systems operation. Kasi this is include national security. Hindi po ito malayo. In fact, isa pang news, tinanggal ng UK ang NARI system for the same reason that I am saying now. Kung ilalayo natin, sasabihin natin, hindi na tayo Pilipino nito. Pinagbalit na natin ng 30, parang pinagbenta na natin sa pilak yung ating bansa.
Thank you very much, Attorney. Pero you will agree, Attorney Matibag, that nung nagkabentahan, Transco was also part of that sale kasama...
It was Pisam was under it.
But you were not the president.
Maybe we can ask...
Yeah, but you were
Attorney-
not the president.
I was not the president, but
But, you know,
somebody in the
as-
room can answer it because
Yeah.
Attorney Alabanza was part of Pisam.
Okay, we will discuss that later.
Mr. Chair.
We will now give it back to the Honorable Dan Fernandez.
Mr. Chair, point of order. Point of order, Mr. Chair. And for the record, Mr. Chair, earlier when I wanted to hear from Attorney Matibag, my point, Mr. Chair, was not as to take time from the good Chairman Fernandez. This was because he is a resource person po. Nagbigay ng statement yung ating other resource persons. I just wanted that for the consideration of the committee that he be given the time. So I hope, Mr. Chair, this would not be taken against yung oras ni Mr.
No,
ni
don't
Chairman
worry,
Fernandez.
your question was short enough.
Thank you very much,
This
Mr.
doesn't
Chair.
include the answer, remember, okay?
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Chair.
but it was the time of Dan Fernandez, so I had to ask the Honorable Dan if he was willing to also ask the same question you were raising para hindi ho tayo matulog kasi kailangan ho time ho ni Dan Fernandez. The Honorable Dan Fernandez, you still have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. At don't worry, Mr. Matibag, welcome to the club. Yung mga na-experience mo, hindi lang ikaw nakaka-experience, pati ako. And going back to what you were saying a while ago, darating tayo dyan. Siguro sa part 2 ng pagtatanong ko at part 3 ng pagtatanong ko, kahit abutin tayo ng madaling araw dito. But going back to what I've been discussing a while ago, Mr. Chairman, kasi meron pong administrative matter na hindi pa po tayo natatakel. So I just wanted to go back there para at least po ay malaman ko yung mga nirequest ko noong nakaraan. Because sa list po ng ating pong mga invited guests and list ng nandito po, parang hindi ko nakikita yung mga taong inimbitahan natin. Like for example, yung chairman ng NGCP, si Su Guangchao. We invited him. Yung director, si Yao Sheng. Yung director ng Wang Lijin, si Lin Xinhua. Asan po sila?
There's a letter.
Yes, what's the letter all about?
Do you have a copy of the letter signed by Mr. Almeida for all of these directors?
So ano po reason, Mr. Almeida, kung bakit hindi sila dumating sa araw na ito?
Mr. Chair? Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Mr. Almeida, please.
Okay.
We have a copy of your letter.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's Chinese New Year, so they're there in Beijing right now.
Kailan po ang Chinese New Year,
On
Mr.
the
Almeida?
29th, and then they have a special meeting yata every year on January of all, yeah.
So hanggang kailan po ang Chinese New Year?
29 yata, Mr. Chair, yeah.
So-
I'm not so sure of the date
So,
because
Mr.
I
Chairman,
don't keep track on the date.
So in the next hearing po natin, I'm sure na makakarating na po sila, no? Na sana po ay dumating na po sa susunod na hearing.
Yes,
And even all the resource persons that we have invited as well, like si Mr. Hennessy, saan po siya nagpunta? Sa embassy?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, yeah.
Embassy and...
Embassy lang po.
okay. Hanggang ano oras po yan?
Well, within the day, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Mr.
I hope
Chair.
that next time he can attend as well.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Robert
Thank you very
Cuyuto po, Mr. Almeida.
Mr.
Chairman, if I may,
Robert
I'll take-
Kyoto has a letter. To save time, they have a letter.
Go ahead.
He has a medical certificate. So Robert Kyoto has a medical certificate. And who else have submitted their Robert Kyoto has the Honor Attorney Ferrer also has a letter. So all of them have letters. And of course, Mr. Pardo has a medical certificate also. So to save time, maybe we can go into the
Mr. Chairman.
discussion. The Honorable Dan Fernandez.
Mr. Chairman, okay po sa akin that they have not attended this hearing today, but I hope that in the next hearing that
We
we will
will
be...
do that.
Yeah. And before I proceed, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
mukhang nagtataas po ng kamay
Yes,
si...
Mr. Chairman. Ang point ko lang dito, Chinese New Year is January 29. So if they find this hearing very important, ano ba naman to fly back here, attend the hearing, then fly back again to China? Are they trying to avoid the hearing? January 29, Chinese New Year. Tama po ba?
Mr. Paul.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Paul, you may reply.
We confirm that the Chinese New Year is next week. But on top of the Chinese New Year, Mr. Chairman, the Chinese, our Chinese partners, their corporation has an annual meeting yesterday, which they need to attend. And we would want to assure this honorable body that we are not evading attending the hearing of Congress.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that's the reason-
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to the statements of Mr. Matibag?
Paul, later, we will give you the time because it's the Honorable Dan Fernandez
Uh,
time.
Mr. Chairman,
apologize,
yes,
Please,
Mr.
please
Chair.
reserve your reply, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's the reason why I said a while ago na sana next na hearing natin makapunta na po sila. At I hope that they will consider that these hearings that we are conducting are so important regarding the franchise of NGCP. And in the last hearing as well, Mr. Chairman, we have a list of documents that we subpoenaed. At isa doon, Mr. Chairman, na hiniling po natin ay yung pong shareholders agreement of National Grid Corporation and yung pong state grid of China. Ito pang state grid of China, siya rin ba, Mr. Anthony Almeida, ang State Grid International Development Limited? Are they the same and one?
No, it's a holding company.
So iba po, holding company yung ano? Yung State Grid International Development Limited? O
Yes,
siya ang
Mr.
State
Chair.
Grid of China?
No, the other one is a holding company. State Grid of China is the mother company.
Okay. So,
Yes.
can you kindly submit to this committee yung shareholders agreement of the NGCP and the China Grid, yung State Grid of China? Okay, shareholders agreement. We need to find out because sinasabi mo kanina walang control ang Chinese
Yes,
sa
Mr.
operation and maintenance of the
Yes,
the
Mr.
operation. So, we will find out with
Yes,
the
Mr.
shareholders agreement. Submit it to us. And
Yes,
please, nire-remind po namin ang NGCP na sana po hindi po sa araw ng hearing kayo nagsasubmit ng mga dokumento. Bigyan nyo naman po kami ng oras para basahin ang mga dokumento na dinadala nyo po sa amin.
Yes,
Give
Mr.
us
Chair.
at least 2 days or 3 days prior to the hearing itself.
Apo, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair.
And secondly, Mr. Chairman, all requests for authority to purchase land executed by the NGCP or any of its officials. Third, yung pong mga memoranda executed by the NGCP or any of its officials in relation to construction projects by the NGCP. Ikaapat po, any and all documents submitted by the NGCP during the bidding for the privatization of Transco. And number 5, any and all documents submitted by the NARI group in relation to the bid proposals submitted to NGCP. Share purchase agreement among Henry C., Robert Kyoto, and Synergy Grid and Development Incorporated. Submit it to us as well. Number 7, proof of approval by the Philippine Stock Exchange and Philippine Competition Commission of the share purchase agreement or the share swap transaction among Henry C., Robert Kyoto, and Synergy Grid. Number
Point
8.
of order, Mr. Chair.
This is a administrative matter, Mr. Chairman.
No, but I would like to make a point of order, Mr. Chair, because I am guided by the subject matter of the inquiry. This is a motu proprio inquiry on the performance of the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. So we are supposed to be assessing the performance of NGCP and in relation to the very objective of lowering the price of electricity. I do not find the connection why the Honorable Fernandez is asking several documents to be submitted before this committee.
Can you
I
please,
think
Mr. Chairman, because with all these documents that we are asking from the NGCP, we will be able to assess their performance. Because
Mr.
these
Chair,
are all
the
pertinent
one that
documents
will
coming
assess
from
the
NGCP,
performance
and we
of
haven't received
NGCP,
any
Mr.
documents
Chair.
yet coming from NGCP just now. Ngayon lang tayo nakareceive ng documents sa kanila eh. Ano, pipigilan niyo ako na kunin to. Ang tagal-tagal ko na kinukuha to, 2019 pa. Mr. Chairman, if I may proceed. Minutes of meeting for the election of corporate officers of NGCP. NGCP corporate policies on the functions and qualifications of officers and audit committee, compensation committee, and nomination and election committee. Number 10, authorization from the Department of Justice for the employment of technical personnel, list of names of nationality and all of managerial employees of NGCP, including their respective job descriptions and years of employment. Number 12, complete organizational chart of NGCP. Number 13, tripartite agreement of Transco, NGCP, DICT in relation to the National Broadband Plan. Broadband Plan. And lease agreement between NGCP and DICT in relation to the National Fiber Backbone. Now, Mr. Chairman, I will proceed. Mr. Chairman, ang tanong ko lamang po sa sa ERC. Yung po bang last rate reset natin, 13 taon na po tayong walang rate Di ba? At lagi kapag sinasabi natin rate reset, lagi na lang sinasabi natin na ang sinasabi ng NGCP, kasi ang ERC hindi sila nag-re-reset It's always like that Lagi ang sinisisi ng NGCP ay kayo. Bakit? Can you kindly tell us, bakit umabot ng 13 taon? Samantalang sinasabi sa atin ng batas, rules ng ERC, every 5 years, di ba? Every 5 years. Kailan ang last reset natin? Kailan? Ma'am?
Mr. Chair,
Isra de Malanta.
Apo. Yung last na rate reset po ay para sa third regulatory period covering 2011 to 2015. So, natapos po ito bandang 2010. Pinatupad po nila ng 2011.
So,
2016 to 2023.
Yun po yung hirap po akong makasagot, Mr. Chair. Kasi po kung maalala po ninyo, especially the Honorable Dan Fernandez, noon pong Agosto 2022, ang bandang September po, 3 weeks into the job, noon pong nag-budget hearing po, ito na po yung siningil sa amin. So, tinanong po naman kami ng diretsahan, nagkaroon ba ng reset, sumagot din naman po kami ng diretsahan na wala. Pero in a matter of weeks, sinimulan na po namin yung trabaho. Kaya po, November nakapaglabas po kami ng rules, December nakapag-file po si NGCP. So, pero yung between po nun, yun po yung hirap po akong makasagot, Mr. Chair, kasi po wala po akong personal knowledge.
Yes, so tama po yung sinasabi ni NGCP na kasalanan nga ng ERC din to.
Hindi po nakapag-reset po talaga yung ERC.
Yun lang. Yun ang problema. Ano ang impact ng hindi kayo nakapag-reset?
Wala pong naging review nung rates ni NGCP at wala din po silang opportunity na makapag-file para sa bagong rate. So ang nangyari po, tinuloy-tuloy lang yung dating rates na naaprubahan ng ERC.
Honorable Dan
At
Fernandez.
wala pong na-assess, wala pong na-depreciate ng mga value ng kanilang mga assets. Mr. Chairman, 13 taon at hindi ako naniniwala na ito'y kagagawan lamang ng ERC, but nevertheless, darating po tayo doon. Ngayon po, anong status ng ating pong reset? Para sa kababayan natin na nanonood at sa mga kasamahan po natin, itong pinag-uusapan po natin, ito po yung taripa. At ang pinag-uusapan po dito, sinasabi yan ng NGCP at ibang members ng ating pong mga kasamahan dito that napakaliit lang ng porsyento ng transmission rate sa kabuuan na binabayad ng ating taong bayan. Pero tayo po dito ay niloloko. Ang ating pong transmission rate, tama, maliit lang, 1 peso and 19 cents per kilowatt hour. Yun po ang general na sinisingil. Pero Mr. Chairman, 13 or 10 cents lang ang difference. Malaking bagay po yan sa ating pong mga kababayan. Most especially na hindi tayo nag-compute, marami na po tayong overcollection. And this must be refunded to our Filipino people. Now, ang tanong, Mona Lisa, ano na ang status ng ating pong NGCP sa rate reset?
Sa reset po ng fourth regulatory period, Mr. Chair, ito po yung tapos ng period, 2016 to 2022. Patapos na po kami. Ito nga pong siguro po ngayong susunod na linggo, may meeting na po kami para final evaluation na po ito. Kasi natapos na po namin yung mga public processes. Required po kami na mag-publish, humingi ng consultation sa publiko. Natapos na po namin yun. So, evaluation na po.
Salamat po, ma'am. Ito po, may hawak po akong 2 dokumento. Isang draft partial initial determination. Ito, covered period of 2016 to 2020. At isang draft final determination 2016 to 2020. This was published noong September 2023 at ito naman noong August 2024. Will you confirm that you have the already signed? Lahat kayo nag-sign dito. Ikaw, Mona Lisa, si Catherine, si Commissioner Maceda, si Lumbatan, si Digal at si Puentes. At sinasabi nyo dito sa draft partial initial determination from 2016 to 2020 was published in September 2023. Am I correct?
Tama po yan, Mr.
At ito naman published August 2024. Draft
Tama po.
final determination. I
Tama
just
po.
wanted to confirm Kasi pupunta ako sa dalawang desisyon na to. Hindi naman desisyon, sapagkat wala pa naman kayong final, di ba? And I just wanted to be cleared. Kasi medyo ako confused ako sa mga desisyon dito na sa mga value ng ating assets that was agreed upon by ARC. And the power of this committee is the oversight power to check na yung pong sinasabi ng EPIRA that the rate base, no, Mr. Chairman, kailangan po nakabase doon po sa tinatawag po nating methodology na ginamit po nila. Now, ang tanong ko po, dito ba sa dokumento na ito, na covered by this document, are you saying na 2016 lang to 2020 itong partial initial determination?
Tama po.
Tama. At ito naman, 21 to 22?
Hindi po, buo na po.
Buo na.
2016 to 2022.
So, imbis na 5 taon tayo ngayon, 7 taon na yung ating pong fourth regulatory period.
Tama po.
Am I correct? Okay. So, sinabi ninyo doon sa draft final determination, which covers the 2016 to 2022, sabi mo, na-post to nung August 24 at na-post din to nung September. Dito sa discussion to, napasama yung commission and completed projects should be allowed to be recovered by NGCP. At dito sa decision nyo at dito sa draft ninyo, nakalagay din yung spent. Am I correct? Tama po ba yung sabihin na nakalagay pareho dito yung commission and useful ng mga projects?
Mr. Chairman, point of order. We cannot be discussing non-final decisions and merely temporary drafts. Otherwise will be intruding into the authority of the ARC in finally determining what should be done to this particular period for reset.
Mr. Chairman,
How can we be discussing drafts?
Mr. Chairman.
This, I would just like to ask.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Di Balanta, are you agreeing to discuss here something that you have not finally decided on?
Mr. Chairman, that's the reason why we have this.
Honorable Dan Fernandez.
That's the reason why, Mr. Chairman, that we have this oversight power to check the abuse of some agencies of our government, especially na maapektuhan yung sinacharge sa ating taong bayan. Pera ng taong bayan ito sinacharge natin Yung ang sinasabi natin dito ng mga proyekto na hindi pa tapos, itinacharge natin sa ating mga consumers. And yun ang pinaglalaban po natin dito. Bakit po natin hindi na-allow?
Honorable Dan Fernandez still has the floor. Let us give him his
But
time.
I have the point of order.
We take note of that,
judicial
Honorable.
decision, you cannot question yet if that's not yet final.
But
These are draft. The commissioners, the chairman, will change this draft and they have that authority under the law.
Okay.
So how can we be discussing drafts of possible decisions?
Okay.
I would like to ask, Madam, because we have a point of order.
Mr. Chairman, I still
And a
have
point
the
of
floor.
order-
Mr. Chairman, I still have the floor.
The point of
Now
order
you have to
is
decide on the point of
precedes
order,
all
Mr.
kinds
Chairman.
of statements.
Decide on the point of order.
Yeah, the point of order is precedes all. The point in
Mr.
the
Chairman, have we
highlighted,
violated
the point
any
of order
rules
is number one.
with the,
Yes,
with
may
the
we
manifestation
know
of
what is
Congressman Rufus
what is
Rodriguez?
what rule has been violated, Honorable Rodriguez? Because
point of
you will
order-
have to understand that he's asking a question based on some research that he has made.
That's correct.
So let us give him that time
No,
because you have to
because a
understand
point
that
of order interrupts anybody.
I will agree, but you will have to cite also what
What
rule
rules?
what rule have we violated? Because you will have to understand, Honorable Rodriguez, para klaro tayo, para maging smooth naman itong procedure ho natin, itong hearing na to. Patapusin na ho natin si Dan Fernandez because there's also an accusation here na kayo di kasalanan ng ARC. So dapat, I think he's also going to go there. So I would like to hear, because in his statement, meron siyang statement kanina na meron kayong kasalanan. So I want him now to continue, and I will allow him to continue, the Honorable
With due
Rodriguez.
respect to our chair,
Okay.
our rules provide for precedence of motions. And in the proceedings of motions, the rules of Congress, it says that the point of order has precedence over all other discussions. And that is why I'm saying that I have a point of order that in this proceeding, we cannot be discussing
No,
drafts.
Mr. Chairman,
which
what
are
rule was
not yet
violated?
final.
Mr. Chairman, what rule was violated? Tama
I
po
think-
yun.
Rule on the precedence
Tama po
of
yun.
Mr. Chair,
2-minute
Pero
break,
ano
Mr.
po
Chair.
yan ang,
Break.
Anong,
Can we have a break,
anong
Mr.
rules
Chair?
ang
Okay,
na-violate
session,
natin, Mr. Chairman?
Session suspended.
Wala naman tayo
Alam po ninyo,
binabiolate sa rules eh.
pag nag-cite ho tayo ng rule, point of order, you will have to be clear what's
Mr. Chair, akala ko
Yes, please proceed.
Okay,
Session
maraming
resumed.
salamat. Okay, Mr. Chairman, ERC, Mona, ito pong inaaral ninyo, yung pong mga bagay na pinag-aaralan para alam mo, kailangan po natin maintindihan lahat ito. And I don't know why other members of this committee is trying to prevent me to explain the details in layman's term. Ngayon, ang ating pong Mona, so, sa pagbibigay ng tamang taripa na ikakarga sa taong bayan, ano ang mga kino-consider dito? Ito, alam mo nyo to, ito yung return on capital, return of capital, operating expenses, taxes. Can you kindly explain briefly?
Opo. Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, yun pong sistema po or programa ng rate setting sa ating regulated entities, NGCP at distribution utilities, yung tinatawag na building block approach. So meron po tayo mga building blocks katulad nga po ng nabanggit ninyo na CAPEX, and then yung return on capital or return on the total CAPEX including the opening asset base, the return of capital, ito na yung mga kasama yung WACC, depreciation, at yung mga operating expenses or OPEX, mga O&M expenses po, at taxes po, kung allowed po sila under the rules.
Okay, in other words, Mona, para mapabilis tayo, itong tinatawag natin regulatory asset base, itong RAB, ang sinasabi natin, ito yung pinaka-asset natin, di ba? Pinaka-asset ng transmission. Tama?
Tama po.
Tapos kailangan natin dito yung CAPEX, kung magkano yung,
Ginastos
yung gagastusin para doon sa proyekto. Now, kapag mataas ang lahat ng ito, mataas ang singil ng kuryente.
Kasi yun po yung base po, multiply.
Correct.
Multiply mo dun sa
At ang sinasabi po ng batas, kailangan just and reasonable na ibibigay sa rate para sa ating mga kababayan. Am I correct?
Tama naman po.
Okay, question. Puntahan natin yung opening RAB. Kasi sa 2015, okay, ano ba yung opening RAB? Ito yung sinasabi natin na, ano yung total asset nung 2015 ng transmission? Di ba? May opening RAB tayo dyan tinatawag May closing. Closing na yun, tapos na yun 2011 to 2015, tapos na yung third regulatory period. Pupunta na tayo sa fourth regulatory period. At ang sabi, yung closing RAB o yung closing na asset na to, pupunta ngayon, moving forward, doon sa 2016, sa fourth regulatory period. Ang tanong, sa draft partial initial determination dito at sa draft final determination, dahil sa tinatawag na roll forward methodology na ginamit ng ERC, mahalaga na malaman. Di ba? Malaman natin ang tamang halaga ng assets ng NGCP na dapat mag-roll forward doon sa fourth regulatory period. Nagsagawa ba ang mga experts na kinuha ng NGCP para malaman ang halaga na dapat may-roll forward doon sa closing RAB papunta sa opening RAB ng fourth regulatory period?
May mga expert pong kinuha ang ERC para po
Sino po?
mag-validate
Sino
dito.
po?
Sandali.
Andito po ba, inimbitahan natin
yes.
ang...
You have one more question, the Honorable Fernandez. Then we will have to move, then you will have to go for a second round. One more question. Proceed. Are you done with your answer?
Mr. Chair, sagutin ko lang po kung sino po yung
Yes.
consultant. NCL Consulting po. Nandito
Yes.
po sila.
NCL, okay. One more question, the Honorable Dan.
Okay. Ang Royal Asia, Appraisal Corporation, andito po kayo. Magkano binayad sa inyo para tayo po ay mag-appraise ng lahat ng total asset, yung regulatory asset base ng ating NGCP?
Nasa likod daw po, Mr. Chair.
Magkano yung binayad? Tinatanong natin binayad.
Pakisagot lang po.
Hindi, ERC na lang. ERC na lang. Magkano binayad? Sa 29 million for NCL and 12 million. Is this correct? Sa RAAC? Anyway, bigyan nyo na lang sa akin mamaya.
Sige po, may
Okay.
breakdown po kasi yan.
So, ang tanong natin sa RAAC, anong opening rub ninyo? So, ano yung asset na natapos natin sa third regulatory period, moving forward sa 2016, anong opening rub natin?
Last question, please reply. Yes.
Ah, yung issue na ito, tama yung sinasabi po ni Mr. Matibag, na matagal na itong issue. As a matter of fact, pinatawag po kami sa Malacanang during the time of President Duterte. Nandun po si Mr. Matibag, nandun si Secretary Cusi, and we were confronted with several issues, and the foremost issue raised by Mr. Matibag at the time was this: saan ka nakakita ng may-ari ng bahay na hindi pinapapasok sa kanyang bahay? I would like to repeat my answer then, Mr. Chairman. Ang sinasabi ko po, may concession agreement po tayo. Para pong may lease agreement. Nangungupahan kami sa bahay ninyo, ikaw nga talaga ang may-ari. We recognize that. Walang problema po doon. Ang sinasabi po lang namin, hindi naman po pwedeng natutulog kami ng 3:00 ng madaling araw, kakabog ka na lang sa bahay namin, papasukin mo kami, maiistorbo naman kami. In other words, there should be protocols to be observed. Yun po ang sinasabi namin noon pa. And truth be told, Mr. Chairman, we have pictures. Attorney Mutia here, Attorney Alabanza, have in her possession pictures that will show that we allowed Transco, we allowed DOE, we allowed NICA to enter and to inspect not only our buildings and facilities. I would like to go to the issue raised on the case na final namin against Transco. Yes, correct. We filed a case against Transco. Ganito po kasi yung nangyari dyan, Mr. Chairman. Meron kaming substation sa Pangasinan. Biglang may nag-aakyat sa mga bakod namin mga tao. Siyempre, huhuliin na ng gwardiya namin yon. It is our obligation as the concessionaire to protect the transmission facilities, and that is why we filed a case for trespassing against these individuals. And we later found out, Mr. Chairman, that they are employees of Transco. Now, Mr. Chairman, can we present the pictures that will show that indeed we allowed Transco, we allowed DOE to visit our facilities? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can we see the slides kung ano yun, ipapakita nila?
Randy, okay, he still has the floor. The Honorable President, please.
Yeah, before I proceed to my next question, can we see the slides? Kung
There are
totoo?
slides that, are you ready to present the pictures?
Or later, while they preparing, I proceed to
Okay,
my
so-
next
Mr.
question.
Chair, I have Proceed to your next question.
I
While
can
they're
send
preparing
it to
Mr. Chair.
COMSEC.
Please,
The link po. I can send the link.
you will send, okay, please coordinate with the staff now.
Yes, sir.
Just
Okay,
coordinate,
the Honorable
thank you.
President Jesus.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Again, the last time the hearing that we had, Mr. Chair, lagi natin pinag-usapan about the Chinese na may one push, may button sa China na once na pinindot yun, magba-brown out. So I would like to ask NGCP, totoo ba yun na may one button na basag pinrest mo, black out ang buong Pilipinas? Maraming nanonood sa atin kasi natatakot sila rito. So gusto natin for the record, totoo ba yun na isang pindot lang magba-black out ang buong Pilipinas? Yung parang bang sa Mission Impossible movie, parang ganun. Totoo ba yun?
Mr. Chair, wala pong ganun sa NGCP na...
Mr. Chairman, he's our Chief Technical Officer, Mr. Chairman. A Filipino citizen.
Chief Technical
Engineer Rico Vega.
Rico,
Pilipino ka?
are you in the position to answer that?
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm the OIC Chief Technical Officer of
Okay,
NGCP.
please, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
That has been a concern, correct?
Yes, sir. I confirm that there is no push button anywhere that can block out the whole grid of the Philippines.
So sinasabi...
But I just would like to, I think the question is based on, are you 100%? Because you did not make that. The National Grid did not make that software and did not make that. We're talking about button, we're talking of anything, but so they're able to tamper with our
Yes,
supply
sir.
of electricity,
As we
transmission of
have
electricity.
reported, Mr. Chair, our SCADA is not connected to the internet, can be accessed. Yeah. It has the own
Okay.
most tedious.
Okay, Mr. President Jesus, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Siguro follow-up question lang. Yung access ba ng Chinese counterpart nyo sa ganitong klaseng control, nakikilam ba sila pagdating sa ganito?
Mr. Chair, all our loan dispatch center and engineers in our facilities are all Filipinos.
Mr. Chair, can I assure the Filipino people, especially yung mga nanonood sa atin, there's no such things. I want you to confirm that. You're under oath. Mr. Chair, na-under oath ba sila? Just to make sure na...
Oh, yes, that's a very
na,
good...
yun nga. Kasi very important to, no? Kasi ang ating mga kababayan, natatakot baka nga daw may push buttons. I just want to confirm na talaga
Okay,
walang ganun.
so on the request of the Honorable Presti, we will suspend your time. Please rise. The committee, everybody, all resource persons, okay? Pati yung mga nasa likod, no? All resource persons attending for the first time, okay? Please rise. Please. At
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before these congressional inquiries to help you God?
thank you. Please take your seats. Okay, the Honorable President Jesus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, kasi, you know, we work in the energy sector for the last 15 years. So, hindi madali magpatay o mag-shut off ng kuryente. Can you explain yung procedure kung paano sinashut down ang buong grid? Yan ba isang pindot lang dito sa Pilipinas o iba sa Luzon, iba sa Visayas, iba Mindanao o iba bayan? Kasi meron tayong mga substation tender na sila lang ang ano. Can you explain that if you have a presentation para once and for all maintindihan ng ating kababayan? Ano ba kasi natatakot sila sa one button na yan na sinasabi nila. Please explain.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Please.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Are you a technical person?
I'm not. I just want to raise a point, Mr. Chairman.
Can you
Because
respond to the question?
Yes.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, we have protocols, but I would like to assure this honorable body that we can divulge everything about our protocols, but these are very, very sensitive issues, and they involve national security. May we request, Mr. Chairman, if we will be compelled to do that, we request for an executive session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much.
And last point, Mr. Chairman, on China being able to put off the whole grid, Mr. Chairman, that's fake news.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Sagayo. The Presti, you still have, Honorable Presti. you still
Yeah,
have the
so
floor.
again, so hindi totoo yun. So at least just to make it clear.
Okay. Okay.
Tony
there-
Paul, maybe Attorney Paul will confirm. Hindi totoo yun.
Yes.
Absolutely a lie, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My next question, who determines, who evaluates, and who approves the type of technical equipment placed in the control centers? Who is authorized to handle the control?
Mr. Chairman, again, the same answer, that all of these things will be covered. We can make, in a presentation that we can make, provided that it is on executive session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Again, my next question, have you opened these control centers to a cybersecurity or any security vulnerability audit?
Who's going to reply? Who's going to reply? Paul, are you replying?
Mutia.
Or
Mr. Chairman,
Rico Vega? Or
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have a third party to audit our system, and in fact, we have been audited by ERC, NICA, and NSC, and we do our regular audit, third party.
And Mr. Chairman, this has been raised a long, long time ago. That is why NICA and NGCP entered into a memorandum of agreement. And again, pursuant to that agreement, we allowed NICA to stay, to hold office in NGCP, and they are there. A lot of times, NICA, our intelligence communities had been visiting not only our facilities in Quezon City, but all over the Philippines. General Esperon, at the time that he was an advisor of the Security Council of the previous administration, they were allowed to visit all our facilities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again,
The Honorable, you still have the floor.
yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, can you brief us further on the NARI, yung NARI, and why it was the chosen SCADA?
Mr. Chairman, can we ask Engineer Clark Agustin to answer the question? Engineer Clark Agustin, Mr.
Engineer
Chairman.
Agustin. Oh yes, you were present in the last, because you were, I remember your name was Mr. Aguilar, or Engineer Aguilar. Okay, so Engineer Agustin, please. There's a
Good afternoon, Your
question,
Honor.
please answer.
So NARI is our SCADA system that we use. Before acquiring NARI, we went through the competitive selection process as mandated. And then regarding the source code issue, yeah. And regarding the source code issue raised earlier, for NARI, we have the source code. But for GE, during Transco time, we don't know about that, sir. But for
Is your
NARI, we have it.
answer,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very
You
much,
still
Mr.
have the
Chair.
time.
Yeah,
The
I still
Honorable
have time and I
President.
still have more questions,
Please
Mr.
proceed.
Chair. Thank you. Next question, have you partnered with the AFP or PNP or any government security agency to ramp up security of critical transmission facilities?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as I've said, we have a memorandum of agreement with NICA. We have agreements with the Armed Forces of the Philippines with respect to the protection of our facilities and related documents. We can submit all of this if required. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chair, no, before
Yes.
I move back to Transco and ARC, siguro my last question, do you pay taxes religiously?
Mr. Chairman, the
Proceed.
question has been answered by the BIR the last time. We have no tax liabilities at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Again, to Transco, no? Kanina, with your presentation, so all the delays, is that solely liable ba dyan ang NGCP? Kasi karamihan, nailagay nyo, if you look at your presentation, you're blaming NGCP alone. Kasi wala sa explanation kung ano mga reason. Can you explain ano ba ng causes ng delay?
Mr. Chair,
Please proceed.
just to clarify, we lifted the information from the partial final determination of the ERC. We properly put the source in our presentation, so that was lifted from the final determination. Now we have also, we monitor what the NGCP submits as its, what we call in the industry as TPSR, or the Transmission Project Status Report. And for Transco, we compare the same to the expected time of completion, or the estimated time of completion under the ERC approvals, Mr. Chair.
NGCP, do you agree to what he said?
Who you're addressing the question to?
To NGCP, if they agree to what Transco said a while ago.
Attorney, Paul?
Yeah.
Is it, who's going to reply? Is it Attorney?
Attorney Mutia will reply, but can you please repeat again? Can you please repeat what you've just stated?
Mr. Chair.
Can you please repeat that?
Yes, firstly, we put the source or the reference in our presentation, and our presentation says that we lifted from the partial final determination. No, initial is the earlier one, but we lifted from the partial final determination. And then also, at the same time, Transco conducts its monitoring based on the submitted TPSR, or that's the Transmission Project Status Report of NGCP. And we have comparison as well with the ETC, or the estimated time of completion, based on the approvals of ERC, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I will answer that. We have already submitted with the ERC our answers, our explanations to all of these issues on delayed projects. I would like to, well, there is a principle which we call the principle of sub judice, that anything that is the subject of a litigation cannot be discussed openly. Well, anyway, we have already submitted that with the ERC. Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up to what the Honorable Congressman Rufus Rodriguez mentioned earlier, as the regulated entity, I would like to raise concern also about the proceedings that we're having now, with all due respect, because under the IPIRA, particularly Section 38, it is clearly provided that there is hereby created an independent, and again, I'd like to repeat that, an independent energy regulatory commission, a quasi-judicial body. As of now, this is the first time that I've been hearing internal discussions of ERC from the chairman herself. I believe that these things are matters which are now being deliberated upon by the ERC. What is the objective of the hearing? Is it intended to influence the ERC? Mr. Chairman, as the regulated entity, I am very, very much alarmed. Because if that is the case, we might just as well abolish ERC. Just a point of clarification, a statement that I would like to make as the regulated entity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Opinion
Mr. Chairman,
is,
I think
well,
I still have time, Mr. Chairman.
The opinion is respected, but we will have to understand that this is the oversight function of the committee, considering that you are a franchisee, and ERC is even the creation of Congress. So if there's any problem with ERC, then their department should be studied also.
I understand.
So thank you very much. So let's be clear. Yes, Chairman Dimolanta.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just for the record, because there were certain statements attributed as if I made them, but there were no internal discussions that I have discussed. All that I have discussed were contained in the published drafts posted by the ERC precisely for public consultation. So I just wanted to put that on record, Mr. Chair.
No, Mr.
So
Chairman.
you're saying that everything that's been discussed here has been publicly posted?
Yes,
For
Mr.
because of
Chair.
because of the consultations, public
Process,
consultations
yes.
that you have to do.
As a
So
matter
there's
of fact,
no
Mr.
secret
Chairman.
as far as this, the honorable.
Mr. Chairman,
Well, before-
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I listened to the discussions during the last hearing. There were discussions about 3-2 votes on as spent, as commissioned. I think I didn't find that in the.
It's published, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
That is published,
Mr. Chairman.
Attorney
information.
Sagayo. So
Point
that
of
is also
information, Mr. Chairman.
everything that's
Thank you.
discussed here has been published, and they will attest to that. Please furnish NGCP a copy. This is still the time.
Thank you.
I would
I'm sorry.
suggest that the questions has to be asked by Presti De Jesus. Okay, if you have any questions, please course it to him, and he will ask the questions. Attorney, Congressman
Thank you.
Presti,
You still have time. I think I had
you still
10 more
have,
questions.
one more question. Please proceed.
I would like to know how many minutes I have. 1.5. So I'm allowed 10 more questions, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
1.5
To
minutes.
Transco. So how many pending right-of-way? May mga cases pa kayong pending sa inyo na right-of-way?
Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct.
So,
Pero these are for the right-of-way cases being handled by Transco pertain to assets that are already operating and operating at the time that we transferred the concession to NGCP.
as far as the NGCP, nung panahon nyo, nung kayo pa nagpapatakbo ng transmission line natin, meron pa rin hanggang yun pending.
Ongoing, Mr. Chair.
So how many years is that?
Some even go beyond the existence of Transco because these are NPC-related projects.
Yeah, even though
Mr. Chair.
this is still a government entities, either
Yes,
Transco, NPC, same banana. My
That's
question is, how took it, bakit masyado matagal? What took it so long na hanggang ngayon, pending pa rin? If you, being a government entity, hindi nyo nagagawa kagad in time, how much more ang private o ang concessionaire nyo, NGCP, gobyerno na tayo kayo
Mr. Chair, at the time, these were projects of the government then, and they were building really the power or the network, the grid. This was way back 70s, 80s. Currently, I will not be able to have any say on what happened before, but it's actually when the concession was with NGCP was prepared or the bid was set out, the right-of-way portion was really left for the government to settle. So NGCP started fresh with their own projects, with their own right-of-way management, Mr. Chair.
So how many cases pending pa ngayon?
In terms of pending cases, right now, Mr. Chair, I don't have the number, but we can submit. But if there are no claims for Transco to settle these, we are not able to do this for all the entire Philippines because these are all done projects. We need the lengthy process here is in fact the validation, whether the piece of lot is really part of a transmission project before, and also the valuation that will go into that in the settlement of that lot, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Honorable President Jesus, last question.
okay. So before the last question, Mr. Chair, siguro I would like to make a manifestation here, no? So there's a motu proprio here about NGCP. But at the end of the day, whatever the results of this motu proprio, kundi rin natin mapababa ang presyo ng kuryente, useless din po yung ginagawa natin. So kailangan meron tayong gawin na bumaba ang presyo ng kuryente.
Okay.
Maraming nanonood
Please
din.
ask your question.
Yeah, before
Your
before
question.
I ask that question.
You have to ask your question. The time
Okay.
is running.
Again, you're still relevant, Transco? Kung wala na rin, you have no control over NGCP. Ano pang relevant ng Transco?
Mr. Chair, this is just, I cannot speak for, if there's no Transco, then there will be no, say, the regular monitoring of the, say, operations of NGCP, because while you have the ERC, the regulator, they don't have the manpower or the setup to really dig deep into the operations or the goings on in NGCP, Mr. Chair. So yes, Transco is relevant, and especially in the planning aspect as well. We are, the government should have a hand in the planning aspect, whether that's transmission, generation, the whole power industry. If the planning aspect is left only to private, then the government side or the objectives of the government may not be directly met, or there may be misalignments in terms of priorities, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, so I'll go for the second round. No?
Thank you very much. The chair now, thank you very much, the Honorable President Jesus. We now go to the third interpreter from the 2nd District of Marikina, the Honorable Stella Kimbo.
Salamat, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Before I begin with my questions, I'd like to remind NGCP that the reason for why you're able to operate is because of the franchise that Congress granted you in 2008. And of course, by Section 2 of RA 9511, the term is 50 years. So hanggang 2058 po yan. But it was granted to you under the condition that it will be subject to amendment, alteration, or repeal by Congress when the common good so requires. So that's the reason for why we are here today. Gusto natin tanungin kung ano po ba ang performance ng isang napaka-importante po na korporasyon dito sa ating bansa. As we know, electricity is a very big source of inflation. At ngayon po, ang inflation ang pinaka-importanting problema po sa ating ekonomiya, and therefore, I appeal to our NGCP officials, particularly Attorney Sagayo, sana po maging cooperative lang po tayo. Mainahon lang po. Wag naman po sana natin i-raise ang sub judice. Hindi naman po tayo korte. People center po ito, hindi po ito korte. Salamat po. So let me go to my first question, Mr. Chair. Kanina pa po, paulit-ulit sinasabi na 3% lang po ang transmission charges. Last week naman po, narinig ko, 10% ang transmission charges. Bago tayong malito, pwede ba natin linawin? Ano ba talaga? Kasi sa pagkakaalam ko, ang presyo ng electricity, at least for NCR, is about 11.42 pesos per kilowatt hour. Kanina po nakita ko ang transmission charges on the average. I saw a slide, it was 0.8 on the average. So, ano ba talaga? I saw an electric bill earlier, 4,000 pesos. Of that, merong 227 na transmission charge. So that's about 5.6%. So, ano ba talaga? Sino bang pwedeng sumagot sa akin? Pwede ba natin pasagutin si ERC Chair? Mona?
I think you're the right agency, being the regulator. What
So
is
don't-
the real
yes,
percentage?
ano ba talaga?
Thank
What
you,
is
Mr.
the real
Chair.
score? Yung 227 of 4,000. Dun sa sample bill na pinakita ninyo last week. Ano yun? Yun yung wheeling charges siguro. Tama po ba?
Baka po ang sinasabi po binabanggit po ng NGCP na 3% refers to wheeling charges only. So kabuuan po, pag po tinignan natin yung bill, yung linya na transmission charges, meron pong kasama dong ancillary services na hindi naman po, to be fair to NGCP, hindi po sa kanila napupunta. Sa Genco po yun or sa market po yun napupunta. Meron din po silang system operator charge, yun po sa kanila po napupunta. Yung wheeling po, yun po yung regular na rates na delivery rates po kasi yun po yun. Pag binuo po yun, siguro po yun yung umaabot ng 10% on the average. Pero sa mismong siguro po mahirap kasi pag porsyento yung pinag-uusapan. Sa mismong customer bulletin ng NGCP ng November 2024, for example po, nakalagay po doon sa kanilang website, nakapublish naman po yung kanilang mga customer bulletin. Kabuuan po na napunta sa kinolekta ng NGCP ay mga sa kabuuang 1 peso, for example, average na po sa Pilipinas, 1.19. 0.45 po doon, 45 centavos, yung wheeling charge. So, tapos po, 56 or 57 centavos yung ancillary service charge. Yun po yung dalawang malaking porsyento or bahagi ng 1.20, 1 peso and 20 centavos. Yung iba pong maliliit na SO charge na po yun, metering service charge, CCR-STC yung connection charge, and yung iba pa pong charges. Pero ang malaki pong porsyento, yung wheeling charge at yun pong ancillary service charge.
Okay, so wheeling charge plus ancillary
ano na po yun?
is what percent?
Parang dun sa November rates po, 1 peso na po yun. Yun pa lang, 1 peso na. Sa
1 peso na.
1.20.
Okay, so tama naman, di ba, sa NCR 11.42. So, talagang nasa 10%.
Pag tinotal
Pag tinotal natin. So, pwede natin pag-usapan ang 10%. Pag sinasabing wheeling plus ancillary.
Wheeling po. Yung ancillary po kasi, hindi po sa kanila po yung
Oh, so
napupunta.
ano yung
Although, sila po yung may obligasyon na bumili po ng ancillary. Kasi po sila nagbabalanse ng system.
Okay, so hindi pumupunta sa kanila as revenues, pero dumadaan sa kamay nila. Okay, pero gayon pa man, from our perspective as consumers, ang transmission burden is 10%. Kaya hindi dapat natin siya baliwalain. Yun lang naman ang punto ko. Okay, ang next point ko, alam naman po natin na ang grid ay parang siyang highway. Di po ba? So ang mga problema sa kalsada tulad ng traffic, congestion, pareho din yan. Tama po ba? Doon sa ating grid. So kaya po tayo tila na frustrate kapag delayed ang investments. Kasi ibig sabihin nun, hindi natin nakokonekta ang mga kalsada. Ibig sabihin, yung kumbaga sa kotse, imbis na natutuloy-tuloy niya ang kanyang pagtakbo, nahihinto. Tama? O di kaya, sobrang daming kotse, kaya tuloy mabagal. Tama po. So yung dapat puntahan na power sa isang lugar. Kasi halimbawa, sa isang lugar na sobrang daming supply, na pwede sana niyang dalhin sa isang lugar na sobrang konti ang supply, ay hindi nagagawa. Tama po. Magsa-stop go, and therefore, dahil sa kakulangan ng transmission infrastructure, naapektuhan ang generation cost. Tama po. So in other words, kahit sabihin natin na, nako, mas malaki ang generation cost share, which is about 51%. Tama po ba?
On the average, yes, ma'am.
Masasabi natin na, sa totoo lang, ang dahilan kung bakit malaki yung generation cost is because kulang na kulang ang ating highway. Kulang na kulang ang ating transmission infrastructure. Is that an accurate statement, ma'am?
It's a fair statement, Mr. Chair. Also, idagdag ko lang po, hindi lang po yung cost ng generation, yung pong cost ng ancillary, tumataas din po. Kasi po, pag hindi enough yung linya, naghahanap ng pampalit, ng substitute, dun po sa kawalan ng linya.
Okay. Yan din ang aking commonsensical understanding. Pasensya na po kayo, hindi po ako engineer, ako isang ekonomista, pero ganyan ang aking pag-intindi. Na kahit sabihin mo directly, 10% lang yan, ay hindi po. Pagpalpak ang pag-invest ng NGCP, naaapektuhan po ang generation charges. Ngayon po, sino po ang may estimate na ilan porsyento doon sa 51% ay due to delays in investment in transmission infrastructure, Mr. Chair? I'm up.
I'm up. Can you answer that? I think that was part of your presentation. Can you actually answer that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ma'am, you're asking me parang percentage, ganun po ba?
Yes.
Or some make us understand what portion of the generation charges would be due to inefficiencies in transmission.
Okay po. Yung po kasing so electric bill, so may generation charges po doon, mostly contracted po yan mga bilateral contracts. So we can say that the cost ng generation doon is the real cost of electricity or yung least cost na siguro sa contracting, CSP, etc. Pero sa amin sa market kasi, aside from the cost of the generation, may additional charge that's factored in that is called line rental. Yung line rental po, to be clear, to clarify, hindi po ito transmission charge. Hindi po ito na tapupunta rin sa NGCP. Kaya lang tawag natin sa ngayon ay line rental. And we are proposing that it be changed actually to line loss and congestion cost. Ang ibig sabihin po nun, kung from point A to point B ay limited yung transmission line, maaaring yung lower cost generation from point A, hindi lahat makatawid to point B. And therefore, yung kulang na electricity necessary to meet the demand in point B ay imi-meet ng generation available at that point B na maaaring from time to time ay mas mahal. At kung mas mahal yon, magkakaroon ng price difference. At yung po basically is computed or attributed as LLCC or what we call now as line rental. So yung kaya po ang presyo sa USM, minsan nakikriticize mas mataas kasi po hindi siya generation cost only. Kasama po kasi sa kinokolekta sa WESM, yung LLCC na ang multiplier naman po niyan ay yung bilateral contracted quantities, hindi po spot quantities. So siguro in a sense sa market, no, yun po yung masasabi namin na contribution. No? Siguro the lower the LLCC, we can say that the more efficient the system is. No? Kung mas mahal ang LLCC, let's say yung Cebu Bohol, no? Kaya mahal sa Cebu Bohol kasi congested yung or limited yung line. So yung pong necessary requirement ng Bohol na mi-meet ng generators from Bohol na most of the time are diesel na. Kaya mahal yung presyo ng kuryente sa Bohol. Now, with the completion of the transmission the second line, no, Cebu to Bohol, bumaba po yung presyo sa Bohol. So, yun po yung masasabi namin na factor ng transmission in terms of prices. So, mahirap po, hindi ko po masabi ko ilang. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification. Just point of clarification sa ERC on the statement of...
Ma'am, are you willing to...
Yes, please.
Yes.
Mikey.
Actually,
Honorable Mikey Romero.
You know, ERC, you have formulas for that. You cannot just blame the distribution or the generation kasi yung EPIRA broke it down di ba? Power generation, power transmission, the supply, and the... so, broken down na to So, kahit sa bill statement natin, either Meralco or any electric co-op, naka-breakdown na yung expenses. So, kitang-kita mo na magkano yung transmission. Number 2, no? ERC, if you can confirm. Ma'am, sorry. Sa cost ng generation, naka-breakdown din kayo on the coal, bunker fuel, plus CRF, di ba? Plus yung return on investment. So, you cannot blame anybody, no? Whether it's a problem of the distribution or generation, very, very separate itong dalawang to.
ERC.
Yun sa unang punto po, tama po. IPIRA required the unbundling. Yun po yung nire-refer ng Honorable Congressman, yung unbundling po ng bill. Kaya po ngayon, kita na po natin yung lahat ng distribution. Dati po nung panahon ni Napocor, nakatago lang yun sa isang number. So hindi po natin alam kung saan nagmumula yung, kung tataas yung bill, saan nanggagaling yung pagtaas. Ngayon po, kita na po natin. So dun po sa pangalawang punto, hindi ko po alam kung if I captured the question correctly, but yun pong sa tariff per, if you're referring po to PSAs, Power Supply Agreement, tama po, naka-breakdown din po yun pag inaprubahan ng ERC. Pero kung ano po yung masisingil dun sa mga consumers, dun sa iba-ibang cooperative or distribution utility, meron na pong mix. So, depende po sa galing, sa husay ng distributor, kung makakabili siya ng mura para mapamura yung mix niya. Or, yun nga po yung pinapaliwanag ng IMAP kanina, yun pong pagtaas sa WESM caused by other congestion charges. Pag po exposed yung isang kooperatiba or distribution utility sa WESM, buo po yung pasa ng congestion charges po na yun. So, hindi po natin ma-fix yun pong formula, kung yun po yung ibig sabihin. Kasi po, ang proseso ng pag-approve ay per contract.
Ma'am, but you're the one setting the formula. Like, for example, if it's 8 pesos ang cost ng, or 11 pesos ang sinabi ni, so magkano ang cost ng generation mo? No? Di ba, kung ako may PSA, okay, PSA ko, power generation is 6 pesos. Sa 6 pesos, 3 piso ang coal ko o ang bunker fuel ko. Plus, yung babawiin ko sa pagtayo ko ng planta, which is the CRF, lagay mo na lang sa 2 piso. So, may 2 piso si generation. So, I don't really understand. Saan ang problema ng transmission dito?
Kasi po, hindi naman po makakarating yung ginawa ni generator dun sa consumer kung di po siya tatawid dun sa
Ma'am, pero kayo gumagawa ng formula on the price of generation.
Tama po. Tama po.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We still have the time of the Honorable Kimbo.
Mr. Chair,
Please,
baka
Honorable Kimbo.
Ulianin na ako, baka makalimutan ko yung
Okay,
tanong
please
ko.
proceed kasi Huwag mo natin para hindi masira yung trend of thought. Go ahead.
Pasensya na po. But it was a very simple question. Generation charges account for about 51%. But I want to know how much of that 51% can really be attributed to congestion. That's a simple question. More or less. I know you're an expert. It doesn't have to be exact science. Ballpark estimate is fine. Just for purposes of discussion, sir.
Sige po. Your Honor, based on the report that we submitted, so if we take, for example, yung Cebu Bohol, no, we'll take na lang po yung the lower amount. If we compare the period of September 23 to December 2023, no, yung period po na yun na target completion date to actual energization, let's say 613 ang presyo sa Bohol. Noong September 2024 to December 2024, after the energization of the new line from Cebu, the average price became 4.89. So same period po siya, period-to-period comparison. The price difference is 1 peso 24 centavos, so that's roughly around 20%. We can probably say, no, may error po yan, plus and minus. We can maybe say 20%, maybe attributable to the line limitation at the time prior to the energization of the new Cebu Bohol line. Kasi yung line loss naman po kasi parang kasama talaga siya, P6 siya eh. So yung contribution, no, yung benefit which the completed line offered, no, roughly translates to around a 20% price reduction. Siguro I can put it that way, Mr. Chairman, Madam.
So, Mr. Chair, malaki, di ba? Kasi on top of the 10% na direct transmission cost, meron palang indirect na transmission cost na nagre-reflect sa as an increase in generation cost. Is that a rough
Yes, ma'am. Pero dudugtong ko lang po. Yung pong binabanggit ko mga prices are all relating to WESM prices, only affecting WESM quantity. So hindi po to yung entire generation charges that we see in our bill. So ang average po from last year is around roughly 20 to 21%. So ang offtake from the market. So we can say that 20% of our generation cost is affected by, or let's say at least in Bohol, by say 20% benefit after the completion of the project.
So, Mr. Chair, si Attorney Batibag wishes.
Just to add, I'd like to interject to the answer of IMAP. Kasi tama naman yung point ni Kong Stella na 10% tayo ng 10%. But effectively, doon na lang sa calculation, that's an actual study, 20%. Tumaas yung kuryente kasi kanina naririnig ko sinisisi natin yung generation eh. So, kahit anong computation natin dyan, cost of money yan, time yan eh. In fact, even before the study ng IMAP, during our time, there was a Butuan Energy Development Plan. Doon sa Butuan Development Energy Plan, it's an LGU study na ginawa nila. Probably Chair Mona is aware of this. Lumalabas doon, ang presyo ng Mindanao is 30% higher than Luzon and Visayas. Bakit? Because of the delay of the Mindanao-Visayas interconnection. It was delayed for 10 years. Can you just imagine 2 pesos more? Bakit? Because under the IPIRA law, ang WESM kasi is to balance the price from the generation. Binibili nila yung mga sobra. But doon sa Mindanao, good thing, may taga Mindanao ng mga kongresista rito, pinersa sila, yung mga DUs dyan, pinepersang bilhin yung mga excess. At saan napupunta yun? Sino nagbabayad doon? Ang consumer yung nagbabayad doon. And one important thing that this committee should recognize, and all the people who are watching this, para lalabas dito, sasabihin natin 3%, 10%. Tandaan ninyo, ang ERC, pag nagsimula na yung project, approved na yan, kinukolekta na ng NGCP ang bayad dyan sa development cost nila. Kaya yung tinatanong ni Kong Dan Fernandez kanina, tungkol doon sa sinasabing WAC na yan, yung computation niya, importante. Ngayon, kanina sinabi, may mga point, ang Transco, o ano yung mga delay because of right of way. There are projects, I think we can ask Chair Mona here, there are projects was already been approved, hanggang ngayon hindi pa sinisimulan. O sino may kasalanan ngayon yan? Pangalawa, ang Transmission Development Plan, ang gumagawa ngayon is the system operator. Ibig sabihin, kung gumawa kayo ng plano, iplinano nyo na kung ano yung mga dadaanan. Alam nyo na kung saan pupunta. Eh ngayon, kung na-aprobahan yan at na-delay, sino dapat nating sisihin? Sino sisisihin natin? Transco ba? ERC ba? Sinong gumawa ng plano? Ibig sabihin, nung plinano nyo yan, gumawa ka ng plano, gagawin mo yung highway, alam mo doon dadaan, may problema ka na dyan. So that's my point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, so just to summarize, Mr. Chair, we're not looking at just 3%, but we're looking at potentially as high as 30% share of total bill. So, importante pinag-uusapan natin, Mr. Chair, kaya salamat po. And my next point, magkano po, Chair muna, ang ating total requirements to connect everything? Kasi right now, magkano ang amount na naka-reflect sa Transmission Development Plan, pero I'm sure you have computed, magkano ba ang required investment? Kasi nakakita po ako ng computation for Indonesia. Sabi doon sa study na yon, ang kailangan daw ng Indonesia para magkaroon ng sufficient transmission infrastructure, the equivalent of 1.1 trillion pesos. But this is for Indonesia. I'm sure meron tayong computation for the Philippines. Magkano po yun?
Mr. Chair,
Yusef Charong
we're
Garin.
retrieving the document. If it's in the Transmission Development Plan, the TDP is.
Yes, but I know that it says 300 billion ba?
Mr. Chair, if I may answer. For the period 2016 to 2020, NGCP claimed, the claim of NGCP was 387.8 billion to be allowed to recover 387.80 billion pesos. Meron po silang bagong application sa amin for 2023 to 2023, 24, 27. Nire-retrieve ko lang po yung numbers kasi yun po yung moving forward. Tapos na po kasi yung period na ina-undertake namin ngayon na ang pinag-uusapan po natin fourth regulatory period. But the moving forward, I'll get the numbers lang po so we can share.
And so, ilang porsyento po sa ngayon ng required investment ang in place na po? Are we half?
Meron naman po tayong detalyadong breakdown, Mr. Chair. We can submit, hindi ko lang po hawak ngayon yung total. But there are still projects, for example, that were approved during the third regulatory period. This was the 2011 to 2015.
No, I'm not talking about approvals. I'm talking about in place. Kasi ang pinag-uusapan natin is yung pinapalawak na kalsada, pinapa-widen na kalsada. So ilang porsyento yung backlog ang tanong? Parang kasi meron ako nakita na parang 90 plus ang ganun ba kataas?
Po yung may numbers na ganun kasi po yung yun po yung sinasama sa Transmission Development Plan. But we have our own numbers. I'll just need to pull it up, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, pwede natin tanongin ang DOE.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
we just have the number based on the number of projects. They're retrieving the numbers in cost.
Or
today.
maybe what you call that, circuit kilometers yata ang proper unit in terms of circuit kilometers. Can you just maybe at one point in time dito sa hearing, if you can let us know? Because I think that's probably the relevant unit to talk about. Kasi we're talking about expanding. Tama ba ako? Okay, so sige, hintayin na lang natin yan.
Mr. Chair, just to, like on the number of projects, out of the 224 projects, this is based on the TDP, the completed projects are 97 and the ongoing are 46 and the rest are, di pa pala kasama. There are 224 projects. Now, out of the 109 projects, the 109 completed projects, 97 of that are delayed projects. And then the ongoing out of that 224 is 46 plus 55, Mr. Chair. And then the delayed within schedule is 9, and then the delayed is 46. The rest are in pre-construction stage. As of our calculations, together with ERC and Transco, about 6.71% of the projects are on time. The rest are delayed.
Only 6.71.
Yes, Mr.
So
Chair.
94, yeah, 94%.
These are without considering kung anong reasons. It's just like if you have a contract, you're supposed to deliver. So in our studies, 6.71, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chair. Ang delayed. Yes, Mr. Chair.
How much, maybe see, I'm up, how much is the maximum reduction in price that can be achieved if all of these projects can finally be completed? Kasi meron kayong computation na 0.005 per kilowatt hour ang magiging price reduction for every 5 billion peso. I don't know who's, I think that was
Your Honor, Transco po yun, yung sa 5 billion na 0.005. Maximum, ma'am, pardon me, I can't give you a maximum only because yung price po kasi maraming components. From this study po, we can roughly say that after completion of all of these projects na tinake namin into consideration, we can look at around really roughly 20% price difference, at least period to period, from yung mga areas affected by this project. Like for example, after the completion of the MVIP, the price in Mindanao went down from 617 to 498, comparing the period of May 2022 to April 2023. Comparing that with the same number of months from May 2023 to April 2024. So that's 1 peso 19 centavos in Mindanao. In Visayas, the price went down by 1 peso 77 centavos. And in Luzon, 1 peso and 99 centavos. So roughly, ma'am, on the average, mga around 20% of the price from that period. Pero pagka month-to-month po kasi, ma'am, yan, especially during summer months, prices are of course higher. Kaya ito po, average prices to for 1 year po ito.
Sige po, sir. I'll give you some time, but can you compute in pesos
Yes,
kung magkano ang pwedeng ibaba per kilowatt hour, considering both direct and yung indirect na pinag-usapan natin kanina? Kasi hindi po ba ang congestion mawawala?
No.
So maapektuhan po yung 20% portion of the generation cost. So I'm sure you can easily compute that, di ba?
Yes, ma'am. Ang ano lang po is that yung po kasing offtake from the market, really around 20% only. Now, if we will try to extrapolate,
Yes.
no, how it affects yung pricing of electricity contracted naman.
Yes
Kasi yung contracts po kasi most of them, well actually all of them, wala po kaming data from the BCQ except the quantity. No?
I'll ask you in the second round. Just give me back of the envelope
Kasi po ma'am, we'll try
computations
and we'll give you
Yes.
more or less non-speculative
Yes,
answer, ma'am.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you po.
My last question.
Last question.
To be very
Thank you po.
quick. For the ERC, who is the regulator of the NGCP. So I believe as regulator, Mr. Chair, they must be at least checking on the compliances with the concessionary agreement. Tama po, no? Ay, hindi. Sino po nag-check?
Concession agreement, Mr. Chair, hindi po. Si PISAM po yung
PISAM.
counterparty po.
So, nasaan po ang PISAM? Yes.
Pisam, please answer the question.
So, can you confirm that? You check on the compliance of NGCP?
Mr. Chair, Madam Congresswoman, yes, we have formed a joint committee between PISAM and Transco, which we call the TR flat.
And you do that?
That monitors the compliance of NGCP
So
with
you
the
do that
concession
annually, right?
Yes, ma'am.
May we know, like, of all the agreements or provisions in the concession, or the stipulations in the concessionary agreement, are there violations? And if so, like how many of the total?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Congressman. Based on our latest report issued on December 2023, we have found certain non-compliances, specifically 66 out of the 83 provisions in the concession agreement under assessor are either have not been complied with or there is no basis for us to assess compliance.
66 of the 83?
Yes, ma'am.
Kung teacher po kayo, anong gagawin ninyo sa estudyante ninyo kung 66 out of 83 ay hindi niya nasagot sa exam?
We have reached out with the DOE in sometime in 2023 to seek a coordination with NGCP on how we can resolve these issues.
What is the most, I don't have time anymore, but can you just give us the most important or the biggest violation in this 66? Something that Congress must be alerted.
Madam Chair, that's why some of these items, Mr. Chair, Madam Congressman, are subject to arbitration, so I cannot easily divulge what these certain provisions are. But again, it's subject to
So you are also invoking.
Well, these items. There are certain items that are subject to arbitration. However, there is a confidentiality agreement between Transco, PISAM, and NGCP, and the consent can be obtained by written consent, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Madam Congressman.
Okay, I'll ask you in the second round again. Sorry, just very short promise, Mr. Chair. See, Mr. Rico Vega is the OIC CTO. Short question, bakit po kayo OIC?
Honestly, ma'am,
Sino po ang totoong Chief Technical Officer? Alam namin, kayo po ang OIC. So, ang pagkakaintindi ko po, kung ikaw ay OIC, meron pong permanenteng CTO na hindi lang po for whatever reason functioning or available, and therefore, you are temporarily designated as such. But in the GIS, curiously, you're also indicated or naka-indicate po dito sa GIS na kayo po ay OIC, CTO. So matagal na pala kayong OIC. Ilan taon na po kayong OIC?
Madam Chair, when nag-retire po yung dating OIC namin, yung Pilipino po, si Sunny D. Maliwat, in April 2021, I was designated as OIC CTO.
Anong dahilan kung bakit hindi kayo ma-designate na permanent CTO?
Yun, ma'am, hindi ko rin
Pwede bang
hindi ko rin alam.
malaman,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, pwedeng malaman kay, ay sino po bang, baka kay Mr. President, Mr. Almeda?
Mr. Almeda, there's a question by the Honorable Stella Kimbo.
Madam Chairman, on the OIC status of Mr. Rico Vega, there's a process also in HR, and once it's approved by committees, the board will approve his. But in the meantime, he's our chief technical officer. Yeah.
And what happened to Mr. Wenbo?
He's not even here. Yeah, he's not even our.
But you confirm that he was previously the CTO. There were documents that were shown in the previous hearing indicating that he was the chief technical officer and he was performing procurement, etc.
Yes, he was our chief technical before. Yeah.
Up to what date, sir?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I answer the question?
Mr.
So, Mr. Chair, before you recognize Mr. Concepcion, Mr. Almeda just confirmed that Mr. Wenbo, a Chinese National was the company's chief technical officer. And this is, I think, a concern because sa pagkakaalam ko sa Constitution ay hindi ba dapat lahat ng executives ng isang public utility ay dapat po ay Pilipino. So that's the concern that I raised, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. That's clear. Please, Mr. Concepcion.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. Mr. Wenbo is no longer with NGCP. It is true that for a period of time, he was the chief technical officer, but he was allowed and given the proper permits by the DOJ, the BID, we even go through the DOE to ask for their endorsement of his visa and permit.
So until when? Until what date?
I have to confirm that, Mr. Chair, but I think it's something like 2017.
So can you submit all of these correspondences that would indicate that the DOJ and all of these
Yes, ma'am.
agencies
We'll do that, Mr. Chair. I think that
permitted
was,
you to have a Chinese national? So you confirm that, right?
yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
confirm that.
Mr. Chair. That would be all, and please list me for second round. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Stella Kimbo. We now proceed to the next interpolator, and that would be, before I go to the next interpolator, from the 2nd District of Batangas, the Honorable Jervin Luistro. Ma'am, welcome to the committee hearing. The next interpolator is the Honorable Colada. Sir, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon.
Proceed.
If I may proceed, yeah. 5 minutes. Last night, I took some time to study the topic that will be taken up today. And as expected, I encountered the words unconscionable delays, WAC, unbundled rates, unjustified delay in the implementation of the projects, and these so-called imperfections. I call these imperfections. Iniisip ko na, Mr. Chair, do we have representatives from Mr. Chair, do you have representatives from the Department of Finance? Marlica Fund?
DOF represented here.
Wala, no?
They're not.
Kasi I'm taking a different tack, a different approach to this. Kasi while I was listening to the discussions this afternoon, parang yung trajectory niya is more on yung performance ng ERC insofar as NGCP is concerned. Yun ang impression ko. With all due respect dun sa mga legitimate issues na raised by Congressman Dan Fernandez and was aptly parang inopose ni Congressman Rufus Rodriguez, to a certain degree, tama yung tama yung manifestation made by Congressman Rufus Rodriguez kasi we're talking about yung performance, yung so-called performance, yung so-called issues na raised by Congressman Dan Fernandez. Am I correct in saying, Attorney Sagayo, that these are pending before ERC? Or some of those were already decided in ERC?
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond to that, as I have mentioned earlier, all these,
the Honorable Colada, is he?
Yeah.
He's asking
Okay,
me,
the Honorable
Mr. Chair.
Bugayo, Attorney Bugayo. I'm sorry.
Sagayo,
I'm sorry.
Sagayo, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All these issues, as I've said earlier, which are being discussed back and forth between ERC and the Honorable Congressman Dan Fernandez, are now the subject of cases which are pending with the Honorable Energy Regulatory Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I just would like to remind everyone, this was raised already, the last hearing, that Section 1 of our Rules of Procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation, which was approved unanimously, the filing or pendency of a case before any court, tribunal, or quasi-judicial or administrative body shall not stop or abate any inquiry conducted to carry out a legislative purpose. Thank you very much. We now proceed.
So we are allowed based on Section 1.
Yes.
So that basically address the concerns raised by Congressman Rodriguez. Correct, yeah. Going back to, this is like a manifestation on my part. The point why I made no mention of Mardica Fund and Department of Finance was that when I tried to Google it, NGCP, January 2025. Yung lumalabas, Mr. Chair, Maharlika Fund, NGCP. And rumor has it, or I don't know if it's rumor, but anyways, Attorney De Leon of SGP is here. She's in the best position to elaborate on that. The last quarter of 2024, I think, around August, thereabouts, Secretary Recto, the good secretary, came out with this pronouncement. I don't know if it's the official position of the Department of Finance, but being the chairman of Maharlika Fund, yung sinabi niya, Mr. Consing, Rafael Consing, you should take a good look at NGCP. Take a good look at NGCP. That is a good first investment opportunity for 4 reasons. And these 4 reasons are, number 1, security. What with the West Philippine Sea problem that we have right now. Number 2, profitability. It's a good business opportunity. Number 3, track record. And number 4, development-oriented, which basically is was in sight with the dynamics behind the creation of Maharlika Fund. That being said,
Is the high cost of electricity attributable alone to NGCP?
Not alone, Mr. Chair.
Not alone. Thank you, because there are a lot of things and factors that must be considered. Is it correct to assume that there was an ERC resolution some time ago where you set the return on equity for distribution at 13.65%?
Mr. Chair, I do not recall that particular, because there's a different percentage governing the distribution utilities po.
Suppose I show to you that particular resolution before this day ends, na 13.65%. What will be the penalty that you should owe this committee? Meron po eh. Huwag po nyo sabihin hindi. You set, nasa resolution po ninyo eh. 13.65%.
trying to recall, Mr. Chair, because if you can share the year, then
Namaya
maybe
po kasi
we can
kukunin ko
trace
po
po.
dun sa aking notebook, nandun
Apa.
eh. But I
Kasi
assure
po-
you there is one.
Sige po.
The reason why I'm asking this, because yung 13.65% hindi natutupad because you are not even examining the financials of Meralco. Pag tinignan po nyo, your return on equity is already more than 23%. Yun po yung pinagmumulan ng taas ng kuryente ngayon. Because you might be barking on a wrong tree. My friend Melvin Matibag, when you made this an statement earlier, what office did you represent?
I said I'm the former president. I'm now one of the consumers, and I
No, but you
represent
made
the Filipino.
you made a statement earlier.
I was asked by the committee to make a statement regarding my experience as the previous president of the National Transmission Corporation,
So you were with Transco at the time.
2017 until 2022.
Yes, that's
In
why
fact,
you were able.
just to be honest, most of the documents being plus here
Kaya nga,
was
the reason why you
provided
were
by
able
the
to make a statement because you were with Transco at the time.
That's correct,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
And you said that you have not had the opportunity of inspecting the facilities NGCP. Did I hear you right?
That's correct, and it's even supported by a letter coming from NGC.
Never, not once.
When I was new, they invited me to view all the screens, but not the facilities. And in fact, as I was saying, there is a letter dated
Up
August
to what
28,
extent were
20.
you allowed to visit?
Only in the monitor room.
The what?
The monitor room, the monitoring room, then they said how the electricity flow. I've never seen the equipment, the narrating and everything, just the screens.
NGCP, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, with all the respect to Mr. Matibag, he was allowed on the floor, the system operations floor in Quezon City, a place usually reserved only for dispatchers. Our guests are usually confined to a conference room beside it, but because Mr. Matibag and then Secretary Kusi were, of course, had a spot visit, we did allow them to come in without notice.
That's exactly what I'm saying with the monitors. Di ba yun? Sa Quezon City?
Mr. Matibag, that was for the system
Yeah, that's what I'm
operations,
saying,
not
with the
just the monitor, sir. That's the control center. That's where everything happens. That's why that's a very high secure area that I myself cannot enter without going through the security protocols, even though I am an employee of NGCP.
Okay, Mr. Chair, may I continue? I think that was settled. Kanina po, sinabi ko na parang pinagtitripan natin ng NGCP sapagkat ang pinagmumulan po ng cost natin sa ating electric bill, kung pag-uusapan ng NGCP po, transmission, is only 3%. Parang ayaw po nilang maniwala. Mr. Chair, ako po, religiously po na kinocompute ko po, alam ko yun eh. Alam ko po 3%, yung nagsasabi po ng 10%, nagsisinungaling yun kasi hindi niya alam yung ancillary services. Alam ko po yun eh. 3% lang talaga. Madam ARC, may I continue with you, please? When you failed to provide regulatory reset for 2 regulatory periods, did it affect the operational cost of NGCP?
Mr. Chair, I don't think so, Mr. Chair, because they were still able to declare dividends during those periods.
That does not answer my question. They might have declared dividends, but I'm talking about operational cost. They might have absorbed the costs. Do you have an idea as to how much they lose or they lost?
Mr. Chair, they would have filed losses, but since they had unrestricted retained earnings, and from those unrestricted retained earnings were able to declare dividends, I would understand that they were able to cover their costs during that period where there was no reset.
So that is the kind of reasoning that you will give this committee. Kaya pala, kahit na mandatorily, kailangan kang gumawa ng regulatory reset. You are all taking your sweet time. Sapagkat alam ninyo, walang nawawala sa kanila. Is that your presumption, Madam?
With all due respect, Mr. Chair, I beg to differ. This
So
commission
you
has...
believe there is no cost on the part of
No,
NGCP?
there is cost, Mr.
That's
Chair,
why
of
I'm
course.
asking you, do you have an idea as to how much
They filed-
NGCP might have lost?
No,
Yun
they
lang
did
naman
not file for losses, Mr. Chair. They filed for...
I'm not asking you, ma'am, if they filed for losses.
I
I'm
thought that
asking
was
you
the
if you have an
question, Mr.
idea.
Chair.
If you have an idea, please say so. Kung wala, okay lang.
Wala po. Kasi po, ang final po nila ay increase in authorized revenue. or
NGCP, do you
allowable
agree?
Mr. Chair, with all due respect to Attorney Mona, what we filed for was correct, but that is because it represents an under-recovery on the part of NGCP.
How much was the amount of under recovery?
For, I think, our fourth regulatory period, we applied for an under-recovery of 200 billion pesos.
200 billion pesos.
Yes, sir, because as you already mentioned, the last regulatory period approved by the ERC was conducted in, regulatory approval was conducted in 2009 for the period ending 2015. So beginning 2016 up to this date, the revenue scheme that we have been working on is interim in nature and no longer reflects the required capital expenditure needed for the continued development of the transmission system.
What was your capex in 2014?
Around 48 billion.
You might want to review your records. I'm asking 2014, madam.
Let me go back, Mr. Chair, to my records.
Huwag kang ninenervyos, ma'am. Wala namang nagko-contempt dito eh. Wala na si Congressman Paduano. Si Dan Fernandez hindi mahilig sa contempt yan.
May I be given a
O sige,
moment?
balikan na kita, ma'am,
Yes, sir.
mamaya. Sa IMAP po, sir, pwedeng tanungin ko kayo.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Your Honor, please.
Sa EPIRA po, sino talaga yung independent market operator?
IMO po, after the transition.
Di, PMC po eh, di ba?
Hindi po, it's IMO na after the transition. Nagsimula po kasi yun, nung magkaroon ng AGMO, PMC po.
ADMO nga po yun, pero
Opo.
PMC dati yun.
Opo, then nag-transition po to the IMO, which is now IMO.
And the transition happened
2018 po.
2018. Afterwards, you registered IMAP in the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Ay, hindi po. We are a non-profit, non-stock corporation po.
So ano po ang IMAP?
It's a non-stock, non-profit corporation, sir.
Ano nga po siya?
It's a corporate entity.
Wala po, hindi po ba na-transfer sa inyo yung assets ng PEMCO, ng PMC?
Na-transfer po yung assets ng market operations.
Yun nga po, kung hindi kayo legal entity, na-transfer ang assets po, medyo mahirap po yan tayo.
Legal entity,
Kasi
sir?
kayo po kasi kumukolekta ngayon ng market fees, tama?
Yes, sir. Opo. Under the
Karaniwan
IPIRA.
po, o noon, ang kumukolekta lang PEMC. Ngayon, pati kayo kumukolekta na, kaya doble-doble na po ang binabayaran po ng mga consumers.
Hindi po. Because the fees that were used to be collected by PEMC is now being collected by AMOP. So hindi po na doble, na-transfer lang po.
Hindi po ganun ang nasa record, sir.
Ay, hindi po yan po ang, yung po ang totoo po.
Hindi po, babalik naman po kayo rito. Then I will confront you with all these, the records.
Yes, sir. Opo.
Kailangan lang po, nagkakaintindihan tayo.
Yes, sir. Opo.
Ang sabi po ninyo, kaya kayo nandyan because kayo ang, ewan ko, non-profit. Pero, di ba ang inyo pong katungkulan niya yung WSM?
Market operator po ng WSM. Opo.
Kayo po nga ang sa WSM. Bakit po nilagay ang WSM ng EPIRA? Ano po ang objective?
Because before the IPIRA, o before the WSM, di po ba lahat ng pagmimili ng
O nga po,
kuryente?
ba't po tayo nagkaroon ng WSM?
Sa akin pong pagkakaunawa, yung kaya po tayo nagkaroon ng WSM to allow flexibility in contracting para po may source ng kuryente kung walang kontrata. And para maging balancing market po siya kung sakaling...
Makakatulong po sa pagpapababa ng ating elektrisidad.
Opo.
Pag binasa niyo po yung konteksto ng EPIRA.
Opo, sir.
Pero hindi po ganun na nangyayari. Meron po kayong pinakamataas, yung cap po ninyo is 32 pesos per kilowatt hour. Umaabot po tayo doon, tama o hindi?
Meron lang po mga intervals na gano'n, pero on the average po, hindi po tayo nagte-32
Oo nga, pero
pesos.
umaabot po tayo doon. Ang ibig ko sabihin, dapat hindi po tayo maabot ng gano'n sapagkat mas mataas pa po kayo ng doble sa Meralco. Hindi po yun ang rational ng... Kasi po ang pinag-uusapan natin ngayon, kung paano natin ipabababa ang presyo ng kuryente. Titingnan po natin lahat.
Opo, sir. Yung 32 pesos po is the offer cap allowed by ERC in the meantime.
Pero, ibig sabihin, hindi po dapat umabot doon. Kaya nga nandyan po kayo eh.
Yes, sir. Hindi naman
Sino
po...
po yung nag-o-audit ng WESM?
ERC po.
Tama po. Anong pangalan po ng auditor?
Yung iba-iba po yan eh. So yung pinakahuli po, Reyes Takandong po yung auditor po
Hindi
na.
po, ang sinasabi ko, Mr. Representative from IMAP, di po ba magbebenta yung generation company? Tapos ililista nyo. Yung po, sino yung nag-o-audit nun? Paano nyo may babato ng ganitong presyo? Yung mga ganon. Hindi po ba sinusunod nyo ay algorithm lang?
Meron po tayong system, opo.
Yun po, the system of algorithm.
You may say that.
Yun po ang problema natin kung sinong nag-o-audit ng algorithm, Madam ERC. Dapat po tingnan ninyo ito sapagkat dito po sumisirit ang presyo ng electricity. Parang yung NGCP na lang po kasi tinitingnan natin. Nakakahalata na po kami. Transco, Madam, sabi po nyo kanina, hindi po kayo nakakapag-visit sa facilities ng NGCP na para bang itinatago sa inyo. Kayo naman ang may-ari. Hindi man lang kayo pinapayagang makarating doon. Sinabi po nyo kanina, di ba?
Mr. Chair, I believe I did not say that.
Ikaw naman yata kaibigan ang nagsabi. Ikaw naman.
Yes. In fact, there's a letter from NGCP. And let me read from the letter. NGC replied on our request to do audit and visit. They replied August 28. We reiterate our opposition to the performance asset and audit for lack of legal basis. Therefore, we regret to inform your office that NGCP cannot accede to the planned pilot audit. And let me answer, in relation to that, yung ginawa po namin at Attorney Mutchan na pumunta ron, you very well know that is only ceremonial. Dinala kami ron ng secretary para mag-picture taking. Yun lang po yun.
Thank you very much, Attorney. Was that, please proceed. You still have 1 minute, Honorable Marcoleta.
Bigyan mo
By
naman
1
ako
minute.
ng kahit 3 minutes lang, sir.
Opo.
Meron pong concession agreement, Mr. Chair, na nandun po, annually, pwede pong mag-inspection po kayo ng books and the facilities of NGCP. Did you not see that, Madam?
We know of that provision, Mr. Chair.
You know that provision, but you did not take advantage of that provision. Nandun po yun eh. Hindi po pwedeng hindi sila pumayag.
Mr. Chair, as mentioned earlier po, we have the TR flat with PISAM, and part of the TR flat, or that's the transmission regulatory, yung TRFLA stand for several areas. So, we may portion po sa TR flat that on the books and records of NGCP na we can, with proper notice, we can get access to the books and records to verify or visit the performance by NGCP of its mandates under the concession agreement. I'm just paraphrasing, pero that's how I'm recalling it now. So, we take advantage of the inspection of books and records. Kaya lang po along the way, merong areas na hindi kami nagkakasundo. Sa scope, may hindi lang po napapagkasundoan. And then also for certain aspects, meron din pong, so generally, meron pong navivisit, merong hindi. That's, that's about it po. I cannot give more details kasi nga po this is part also of the issue between Transco and GCP.
Mr. Chair,
Nung,
may I be allowed to say something?
nung ang Transco po ang humahawak pa ng ating transmission, can you honestly say that transmission cost is cheaper?
Mr. Chair, I think they are not directly comparable in that sense kasi po ngayon, ang denominator po sa transmission cost is the demand
Madam,
for energy. So kung
This committee will be the one to judge whether it is comparable or not.
in terms of
You just have to answer my
numerical
question.
number, I believe nasa mga 6, yung 45 centavos ngayon, before was maybe at 60 centavos if I'm not
Di
mistaken.
mas mataas kayo, di ba ma'am? Okay. During your time, can you safely say that there are fewer brownouts as compared today when NGCP is the one handling the transmission?
I
Mas
cannot
marami
recall
po kayong brownout, ma'am. Ako nasasagot.
wala
sa inyo.
pong ano ng records.
ERC, ma'am. If we will have more connections that will become, or if we will have more communities that will become contestable markets, we will have the chance of lower electricity. Correct?
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
Ibig sabihin natin, palalaganapin natin yung retail competition and open access para
Tama po.
bumaba po. Nandun po.
Apo.
If aggregations is maximized in communities, electricity will be further reduced.
Tama
Yes,
po,
ma'am.
Mr. Chair.
If we remove the 12% VAT in electricity, we can lower electricity further. Tama, ma'am.
Immediately, Mr.
Immediately and significantly. If we remove the excise tax in fuel, which feed the generation system, especially the backload, will certainly lower our electricity, madam. Tama. DOE. Yes, ma'am. Madam DOE, considering ang ating pong mga fuel ngayon are more or less imported, yung pong nagme-maintain ng ating base load, coal and petroleum, hindi natin mapapababa ang kuryente. LNG is also imported. Tama po?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Last 1 minute of your 3-minute extension. Because we gave you the 3 minutes because you're the senior citizen.
Madam DOE representative, if we remove the cross-ownership provision in the EPIRA, we can rationalize better the price of electricity eventually. Kasi mapipilitan silang bumili dun sa hindi nila kamag-anak o hindi nila kaibigan. Tama, ma'am? Nakakatulong.
The cross-ownership prohibition.
Where the distributor kasi, part owner siya nung generation, kaya napipilitan doon sa bibili kahit mahal yun eh. Pero kung walang cross-ownership, at palalaganapin natin yung competitive selection process as if it is open and public, bababa ang kuryente, ma'am. I assume. Oh, yes daw, Mr. Chair. Philippine Competition Commission.
Last question.
Yes, yes, sir. Kasi po, ma'am, baka akala nyo hindi kayo kasali rito eh. Is NGCP violating any anti-competition or market behavior or whatever?
Mr. Chair po, with regards to having a single franchise owner, we note naman po that that is not uncommon in the energy transmission. But for markets like this where you have a single franchise owner, strict compliance po with regulation is key for that.
Parang hindi mo sinagot, ma'am eh.
Thank you.
Baka gusto mong, walang violation, di ba?
Mr. Chair, I'm not privy to any violations.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
You're the OIC for liaison.
Legislative liaison.
That's your position?
Yes po.
Asan yung boss mo?
Due to recent personnel movements po, ako po talaga yung for
In the next
today.
hearing, we will call for your boss on this particular issue. Thank you very much, Honorable Marcoleta, for your extension, which is given only to senior citizens. Honorable Mikey Romero.